He appears to be an ordinary high schooler, but Seo Dojan single-handedly purges entire dungeons. This one is a nest of colossal orcs that look utterly unbeatable. Yet, Dojan executes their leader in a single, devastating blow. The horde swarms to crush him, but he moves like a phantom of death, crushing them like insects. From a corpse, he plunders a rare magic stone to amplify his abilities even further. Satisfied with his prize, Dojan packs it and moves to exit. But a team from the guild controlling this dungeon intercepts him. They are enraged he poached their kill. With superior numbers, these high rankers believe they can easily discipline some random student. They have just made the last mistake of their lives. As they move to restrain him, Dojan reveals a sliver of his true power. Even as they assault him from all sides with stun batons, their efforts are pathetically futile. Dojan dismantles them like they are children. They have no chance, and cannot comprehend what this boy truly is. After disposing of the garbage, Dojan strolls out of the dungeon unfazed. You must wonder how he is so powerful. His previous life was a grim tale of a constant manhwa level up in a world annihilated by far deadlier monsters. An endless scourge overran his home, drowning it in despair. Its people fought to their last breath to protect what remained. Among those desperate souls was this story's protagonist, Carcelian Leandian, who met the threat with unparalleled viciousness. Years passed in endless battle, slaying countless monsters, raising mountains of the dead with his lone sword, his heart a void of fear. Then, the final day dawned, when he confronted the ultimate demon king. That fiend was a nightmare to conquer. Their battle was cataclysmic, but he finally put the beast down for good. In the aftermath, he too succumbed to his mortal wounds, but fate was not done with him. As his soul drifted in the void, he met a human boy from a planet called Earth. The boy, Seo Dojan, was also on the verge of death for some unknown reason. Before his end, he wanted to make a simple request to Carcelian, who refused before even hearing it. After all, our warrior only craved the peace of oblivion. He was done with the eternal struggle. He lost his world, his loved ones, and died a savage death. And yet, this boy, Seo Dojan, also had no will to live, but he desperately wanted his family to be safe. It seems Carcelian was finally willing to listen to the boy's plea. Dojan's spirit flared as he voiced his one desire, for his family to live in peace. And so, our warrior accepted the pact, awakening on Earth to protect this new family. Now, inside the body of the teenager Dojan, he is on a mission to breach Namsan Gate, a C-ranked dungeon. Only registered hunters may enter, so the automated system repeatedly demands an ID card he does not possess. He simply smashes through the authorized checkpoint to access the gate, triggering alarms that scream of his illegal entry. Once inside, he begins his hunt for monsters to slaughter. That is when he encounters a party of hunters. These are licensed professionals, with permission to be here. They assume he is lost, and offer to lead him to the exit, as they are also leaving. Dojan remains silent, radiating a deeply unsettling aura. Even these hunters sense something is wrong. His street clothes scream civilian, not hunter. While porters dress down, his attire is far too basic. And that plain backpack? For all they know, he's just some naive porter abandoned by the party he came with. But something feels off. Dojan finally speaks, acknowledging their skepticism, but making it clear that he came here alone, without any party. At this, one hunter sighs, thinking he understands. He has seen plenty of glory seekers who get a sudden urge to hunt monsters after watching some slick commercial. But that kind of motivation will get you killed. You get killed fast, barging into gates recklessly without proper procedure. First, you get certified as a hero, then you go through training and tests. Besides, this gate is C rank for a reason. If you're a rookie starting out, you better find an F rank gate before you truly die. After this guy's lecture, handing out unsolicited advice, Dojan makes it clear he needs none of it. Naturally, the heroes are stunned by his cold, dismissive tone. After all, they were only trying to help, so they're annoyed, but their leader tells them to stand down. If he refuses help, then fine, leave him be. The leader is sure this kid will learn the hard way why you listen to your elders. They hope he finds out how unforgiving gates are, unlike the shows that glamorize this like some manhwa level-up fantasy. Soon, Dojan finally comes upon a giant troll, staring him down, ready to devour him. The monster strikes, but only hits the ground. He moved so fast, the troll couldn't process what just happened. He then clenches his fist, delivering a punch that obliterates the troll's entire face. It's like a scene of absolute carnage, pure overwhelming power. With the monster gone, it's time for the prize, the loot. First, he takes the blade the beast was carrying. Then, he uses it to carve into its corpse and extracts a gleaming gemstone. A low-grade magic stone, worthless trash he never bothered with in his past life. But now, he's broke. Right now, he has no choice. Suddenly, more monsters swarm in, enraged by their comrade's death. Dojan turns and hurls the gemstone so fast it detonates a monster's head on impact. The other two charge in, as if begging for their own demise, and Dojan is more than happy to oblige. As he wreaks havoc, we cut back to the heroes trekking through this infested land. Their minds are still on their encounter with that young man. The woman with orange hair is genuinely worried for Dojan's safety, fearing he's already dead. but their leader assures her that's unlikely. If he's an unauthorized entrant who barged in, agents from the control center will find him. Those agents are always B rank or higher, and since this is a C rank gate, there's no way he's dying here. As long as the kid avoids recklessly fighting monsters, he has no chance of dying. The bald one agrees with his leader. He's sure the arrogant brat is cowering somewhere, waiting for agents to save him from certain doom. Well, the reality is the complete opposite. It's Dojan who has these hulking brutes trembling in fear. One punch, and his prey is down. He's so fast they can't lay a finger on him, let alone crush him with their massive blades. He appears behind one and delivers a kick so hard it completely shatters the creature's skull. With all of them down, he grabs a sword and harvests the magic stones for himself. After a while, his bag is full and he's ready to go. Honestly, he's disappointed with this haul. It's basically dead weight in his bag, just low-grade stones. Just then, an agent finally spots him and alerts his team. Before Dojan can fully turn, the men in suits give him a hard stare. They identify themselves as Gate Control and demand his hero registration card. If he's unregistered, he must accompany them to the control center. Dojan seems hesitant, which makes the agent's tone even colder, insisting he cooperate and follow procedure. The only response they get is pure annoyance etched on Dojan's face over this drama. This whole ordeal is killing his mood. He doesn't have the energy to argue, he just turns to leave. Since words failed, they threaten handcuffs if he refuses to comply, as force may be used. The impatient one grabs his arm, a move he'll regret. What do you think happens? Let us know. And subscribe to find out. He'll suffer if he refuses to cooperate. Worse, all liability will be his. So, it's in their best interest to resolve things with words, not force. Dojan, done with the talk, seizes the man's hand, warning him to stop being a thorn in his side. This chilling threat makes the agent instinctively recoil. A cold dread fills him. The other two men draw their magic-infused batons. They are grade 4 magic staffs, strong enough to down an orc, but not potent enough to physically harm our guy. So, he viciously twists the agent's hand, forcing a pathetic whimper. Dojan then issues a final warning. They better leave now, if they wish to keep what little dignity remains. The duty-bound agents are finally forced to retaliate. They try their best to strike our guy with the staffs, but none connect. He delivers a crushing blow to one man's back, then strikes another in the gut. Next, he targets the man in glasses, the last one standing. The agent senses the danger and tenses. Dojan blurs, vanishing completely, causing the agent to panic at the sight of a man disappearing. Then, a surprise punch lands in his gut, making him stagger back in pain. It seems Dojan is tired of the agents hounding him, so he finally considers registering as a hero after all. The agent assures him that if he avoids illegal acts, no one will hunt him. Dojan then asks about this thing called a rift. The question completely throws the agent off. A quick primer on this world. There are multiple passages connecting to a world of strange monsters. These passages are scattered globally. The gemstones harvested from monster carcasses are used as new energy, making them highly coveted. Consequently, the government oversees these passages, maintaining total control. Each government-controlled passage for heroes is a gate. Uncontrolled or unenclosed passages are known as rifts. Back to our guy, who finds it incredibly annoying that agents follow him, accusing him of trespassing no matter which gate he enters. The agent explains if an unregistered hero enters a gate, the control center is automatically notified, and nearby agents are dispatched immediately. Since our guy considers entering a rift, the agent clarifies they aren't as accessible as gates. Trespassing into a rift results in severe punishment. No warnings, no deals. Dojan isn't interested, so he grabs the agent by the face and hurls him aside like garbage. The agent now regrets not calling for backup. This is way above his pay grade. Before leaving, Dojan glances back at the agent on the ground, thinking what a weakling he is. The man appears to have a fractured arm, and is busy screaming threats, vowing to catch our guy and jail him. The scene shifts to the Soul Gas and Digital Complex in Gyeomcheon. This massive building is the Hero Complex. Here, all trades in magic stones occur, the heart of this world's Manhwa level-up economy. These days, this place is busier than ever. Dojan heads toward a store that buys and sells magic stones. Upon entering, he's met by a clerk absorbed in some mind-numbing video feed. When Dojan says he's selling magic stones, the shrewd owner immediately boasts about his business, claiming this branch offers the best prices. He even dares to say they're the best in the nation. Dojan places the low-grade gems, smeared in monster blood, on the counter, causing the owner to make a sour face, as if he'd smelled something foul. He's clearly disgusted by the blood on the stones. Regardless, he doesn't complain and proceeds with the transaction. Dojan is offered coffee while the stones are processed. A short time later, he's sipping coffee, while the owner meticulously cleans the gore from the stones. Afterward, the man calculates the total owed. The final count is 12. The haul. Low-grade magic stones, 16 medium-grade, plus 5 high and low-grade stones. After a steep 40% commission, Dojan was set to receive around 5.5 million won, but handing over 40% felt like a robbery. He'd done all the work, bled for this. So why was this parasite entitled to nearly half? The shop owner boasted, claiming his rate was an act of generosity. He was only charging 40%, while competitors demanded 45 or more. Confident, he dared Dojan to take his stones back, if the price wasn't to his liking. The man claimed no one else would offer more, but Dojan wasn't falling for the bluff. He began packing his hard-earned stones. Seeing the gambit fail, the owner grabbed Dojan's arm before he could leave, and demanded payment for the appraisal and coffee. 30,000 won for the service, 10,000 for the drink, and that wasn't all. The blood that had ruined his expensive towel. The total came to a fabricated 350,000 won. Dojan refused to yield to this extortion, no matter how hard the man pressed. When that failed, the owner resorted to street-level threats. He threatened Dojan with his class hero bodyguards. On cue, the muscle barged in from the back, asking who needed roughing up. If someone was making trouble, they were ready to end it. Dojan's glare was ice, met by the owner's own defiant stare, with equal intensity. Moments later, the scene shifts to the shop owner's terrified, sweating face, his earlier confidence shattered. He'd received a harsh reality check. Dojan had dismantled his 3 thugs effortlessly, proving who the true protagonist was. Dojan approached the counter and calmly renegotiated the commission to 1%. There would be no arguments, not when a man like Dojan was staring into your soul. The deal was struck, and he left with a thick wad of cash for the haul, earned with his fists. Back home, his grandma and sister were stunned by the money. Grandma even suspected the bills were counterfeit, but Dojan quickly explained it away. A loan to a friend whose business had suddenly boomed. Grandma was skeptical he even had such a friend. He doubled down on the lie, claiming it was a friend from his childhood. Eventually, she let it go. Meanwhile, Dojan's sister, Yunyong, was simply proud of her brother for making them rich. Dojan patted her head, promising a better life from now on. The little girl jumped with joy at the thought of being wealthy. Seeing her happiness, Dojan felt a sense of progress, a promise being fulfilled. He recalled the words of this body's original owner. His one dying wish was for his grandma and half-sister, Yunyong, to live safely and happily. The original soul faded away before Dojan could respond. When he awoke, he was Seo Dojan. Now, his sole mission is to protect this small family. To do that, he needs the safest house in Korea, priced at 110 billion won. But for him, money isn't the real obstacle, so long as he can reclaim his former strength. This world is eerily similar to his own ruined home. The only major difference is that the rifts, gates, and monsters are all significantly weaker. To the man once known as the Sword God, this world is a mere sandbox, the ultimate Manhwa level-up scenario. He's only been using 1/10 of his true power. A sudden knock at the door. A voice outside calls for Dojan. He rises to answer it. Opening the door reveals 2 thugs, here to collect a debt, an impossible 48 million won. Dojan knew instantly. Loan sharks. A debt left behind by the original Seo Dojan. It was originally 5 million won for his grandma's hospital bills, now bloated by predatory interest to nearly 10 times that amount, times the original sum in no time. They know he's been earning through gates, so they demand he cough up the cash, all documented in their contract. But the only repayment these thugs get is a jaw-shattering blow right to the big guy's face. That one punch sends the brute flying, leaving his partner's jaw hanging in utter disbelief. Our guy then fixes the scrawny one with a deadly stare, reminding him over 9 million was already repaid. By that math, they should be paying him interest. Another punch makes the thug weep pathetically. Dojan tells him to inform his boss that Dojan is coming to visit. The scene shifts to a bustling shopping mall, alive with people. There, we see sweet Onyong, captivating a kid in a teddy bear shop. Dojan brought her for a shopping spree. Today, she can have anything she desires. You see, our protagonist wasn't always this gentle in his prior life. The original Dojan's memories have rekindled his cold, dead emotions. It warms his heart seeing how kindly Dojan treated Unyong, his half-sister. So, he vows to continue, giving all the love he can summon for this little girl. The girl finally picks a stuffed toy she truly wants. It's a small, cute bunny. She chooses modestly, careful not to be extravagant. But Dojan grabs a much larger stuffed toy for her. He refuses to let her hold back. It's her day to choose whatever her heart desires without a second thought about the cost. They both then treat themselves to a good meal. As they eat, an unfamiliar voice calls out our boy's name. It's a middle-aged woman flanked by bodyguards. This portly woman seems like another vile person who enjoys hating on our boy. First, she insults his cheap-looking clothes. Then she questions the girl beside him. She's audacious enough to jeer that he must have sired this girl out of wedlock, just as his mother brought him into the world. Naturally, these venomous words infuriate our boy beyond measure. Meanwhile, the little girl is clueless about who this lady is or why she's spewing such venom. The woman then turns her attention to the girl and demands her name. The girl introduces herself as Lee Yunyong, which makes the hag realize she's Dojun's sister. Out of habit, the woman insults her clothes as well, calling her a mess. This shrew doesn't even spare his deceased mother, and all of this is grating on our boy's last nerve. But for some reason, he's suppressing it, refusing to react to her provocations. Even this woman is stunned at how Dojan is maintaining his composure, not falling for her bait. So, the shrew decides to escalate. This corpulent monster is bold enough to ask a child the meaning of the word harlot. That is the final straw. Dojan snaps, calling her an ugly woman from a tribe of orcs. Of course, the woman is left stunned and speechless, completely caught off guard. Let's add context to understand Dojan's tolerance. You see, Dojan was born an illegitimate son into a life of poverty. At the tender age of 7, his mother passed, and he barely survived to reach his father's house. With his father remarrying, he was ostracized by everyone. It worsened after his father's new wife bore a son, and Dojan was utterly ignored. It got so bad he was kicked out of his own home. He then lived with his half-sibling at his grandmother's house. As our boy reflects back, he pities the original Dojan, who endured all this, yet tried to smile as if he felt no pain. But now, he will change everything. It appears this woman is his stepsister, explaining his restraint, but he won't tolerate her any longer. He remembers sharing a roof with this orc-like woman, and she's as repulsive as ever. Not only is her personality twisted and her appearance grotesque, she's also incredibly dense. He further shatters her spirit by dropping brutal truths about her inferiority complex. That's the only reason she projects her own insecurities, calling others ugly. She's just a gold digger obsessed with others. That's the truth the world needs to know. As he continues to crush her with his sharp words, the entire mall watches them, now the center of attention. The orc lady is utterly vexed and on the verge of snapping, but then Dojan's stepmother enters. Seeing her, the oafish girl approaches like the spoiled brat she is, whining how this boy just verbally dismantled her. But the mother, aggravated by this display, silences her with a single, chilling glare. Honestly, the man has one formidable stepmother. I initially mistook the other one for her. The elegant woman then turns her focus to our protagonist, greeting him with practiced grace. She invites him home for some fun, but Dojan knows this facade all too well. His stepmother wears a complete lie. She's the source of most of his misery during the 12 years he lived there. The woman continues, dredging up memories he'd rather forget, triggering his trauma and shifting him into a serious mode. With a tone colder than a winter grave, our hero tells this woman to get the hell lost. It's a massive blow to her pride, being dismissed by someone younger. She simply turns around, leaving with what little dignity she has remaining. Truly, she never expected such a sharp retort. She's left to wonder if he is the same boy who would just lower his head when she struck him for no reason. Her wretched daughter trails behind, with their bodyguards also following the two women. Frankly, the guards were as useful as mannequins in this confrontation. Now, let's return our focus to our protagonist. It seems these two completely ruined the moment our duo was sharing. So, our hero decides it's time for him to depart as well. His reaction was entirely intentional. He needed to make one thing crystal clear. The old Seo Dojan, unable to defend himself, is gone. It's time his vile family understood that. We then cut to a Mercedes speeding down the road. Inside, we see the wicked mother and daughter. The daughter is furious at her mom for simply walking away, instead of putting Dojan in his place. She vents her rage, cursing our hero for their public humiliation. The mother then orders her manager to explain why Dojan is still alive. The manager has no idea, as this contradicts all the reports. The woman screams at the top of her lungs about the nonsense this man is spewing. How could he possibly be alive, when they confirmed the job was finished? The man assures her he will investigate the matter again, and ensure the job is done right this time. Meanwhile, the clueless daughter has no idea what her sinister mother has been plotting. She's shaken by the talk of killing and death. Eventually, the mother poses a question, asking if her daughter has feelings for Dojan. This catches the girl completely off guard, making her blush. In reality, she's worried about Dojan dying, because if her grandfather or father find out, they will be in grave trouble. The mother seizes her daughter's face, warning her to stay the hell out of her business. The mother is determined to end Dojan's life, with no intention of sparing him, especially after his defiance. Eliminating him is the only revenge she desires. A decade ago, the world plunged into chaos with the appearance of rifts. This terrifying dimension gave birth to monsters that spawned from its portals, their sole purpose to slaughter humans on sight. The terror was relentless, ceaseless, and eventually, it ravaged the world, leaving scarred, burning cities in its wake. But just as these dark forces appeared, so too came the emergence of a light, valiant warriors known as heroes. With their arrival, the first mana stones were discovered within the corpses of defeated monsters. Back in the present, Dojan heads somewhere, reflecting on how mana stones shifted the world's reliance away from traditional energy. Due to their vital role, nations focused their attention on the rifts, essentially claiming priority over them to monopolize their resources. As the world now stands, all industry is completely dependent on these gates and the heroes who conquer them. Because of this, the profession of a hero yields immense rewards. It's the ultimate Manhwa level up. A consistently high income is only possible by becoming a true hero. Dojan has now arrived at his destination, the Yongjong-o HCS, where his real trial begins. The capital establishment. A mouthful, but you will soon see why he is here. He strides into the building, and upon first glance, the boss and his goons look like your typical thugs, trying to intimidate with their grotesque faces. But Dojan remains unnervingly calm about the situation. The boss crushes out his cigarette, noting our boy's audacity to not only brutalize his men, but then appear at his very door. It proves Dojan has absolutely zero regard for any of them. He coldly informs the organization's owner that, in reality, it is Dojan himself who has suffered the true loss. The statement is absurd from the boss's point of view, so he seeks clarification on what our guy means. Dojan clarifies that he has come to receive his well-deserved compensation. After all, he has endured mental, physical, and material losses this entire time because of the existence of these clowns. With his firm, serious words, the boss notices one profound shift in the boy's personality. Something about the kid has fundamentally changed. The gentle person he once was is gone. Then there's the evidence. This same kid obliterated the enforcer sent to his door. It's a progression so fast, it's like a manhwa level up. The boss suspects CO Dojan must have had a unique awakening inside the gate. Despite this, he still decides to act arrogant, telling Dojan his newfound confidence from his awakening will be his own undoing. The hypocrite lectures our boy on being overconfident in his abilities. To back his claims, he summons a group of hulking men to intimidate him. Of course, he can pack all the muscle he wants, but to the experience of the sword god, they are practically insects. The boss is spouting nonsense, stating that even those awakened end up getting killed, like low-class fodder in the end. The funniest part is, he assumes that So Dojan is nothing beyond a D-class hero, and that his organization can easily crush someone so insignificant. Meanwhile, Dojan just relaxes on the sofa in the background, while 5 men are staring him down. Without a hint of amusement, he orders the boss to sit back down. The boss is astonished to hear him continue speaking in that tone, as Dojan emphasizes with a serious face that he is not done talking. Hearing him say something like that, one of the thugs loses his cool and challenges Dojan. Amusingly, our boy calmly removes his glasses, adding to their confusion. And then, he unleashes a devastatingly fast punch straight into the man's face. The dude is sent flying from the impact while his friends are frozen in shock. But that's not all, as the punishment is shared when Dojan drops another one. Keep in mind, while dismantling them, he is calmly making his points, sharing his knowledge of the boss's secret, shady business hidden beneath the cover of a loan shark operation. Dojan targets an orange-haired punk, proving his knowledge of the counterfeit identification business they run. Landing his punch, he tells the boss he needs a hero identity to officially register and make money. Ducking the final guy's strike, Dojan returns the blow with triple the force, putting the entire group to sleep with his special sleeping routine. It works 100% of the time. Dojan continues his demands, stating he needs foolproof identification that won't cause him any trouble in the future. The boss is left reeling by what just happened in a few seconds. Our boy reminds him he has only one day to forge the identity for him. Some men didn't even intervene, which is uncharacteristic of fodder who usually challenge a god while being a level 1 rookie. The boss's mind is reeling as he begins to question and reassess Dojan's skill level. At the very least, this guy has to be B-class in strength. He is so lost in thought, the kid has to remind him to snap out of it. He quickly accepts the job. Finally, Dojan politely grabs his shoulder, his grip a stark contrast to the intimidating expression on his face. He wants to know if Hong Hee-ju, his own stepmother, had ordered the hit. Of course, this was precisely the case, confirmed by her earlier conversation with her daughter and assistant. The boss is speechless until Dojan's grip tightens, forcing a yelp of pain from the man. Even his underlings look utterly helpless. For their boss, I have to say, they should really change their barbers. Regardless, the man breaks down and reveals her heinous strategy. This cruel, scheming woman intended to bleed Dojan's bank account dry, forcing him into such financial ruin that he'd have no other choice but to end his own life. Now, that is the definition of a truly evil plan, especially one aimed at your own son, even if he was cast aside. Those were her orders. Dojan hears this, and after the man's pathetic begging, he releases his grip, questioning if this was why they trapped him in the gate. The boss instantly feigns innocence, claiming he had nothing to do with that incident, even revealing he wouldn't get paid if Dojan died inside the gate. That's a plausible reason why he wouldn't have done it, and it gives Dojan pause, making him think. He utters a name, Kang Chol-woo, the very man who led him into the gate in the first place. Dojan demands every last piece of information on the guy by tomorrow. With his 2 demands stated, he leaves calmly, completely shifting the room's atmosphere from when he first entered. After the confrontation, Dojan is again lost in deep contemplation. The real CO Dojan had only one desire, to protect his little sister and his beloved grandmother, no matter the cost. On top of everything that happened, it just adds another layer of misery, showing the life the poor kid endured while being helpless. But fear not, because the sword god is ready to do what he must to set the record straight. The following day, our boy is officially registered as a hunter, and he has also secured a B rank rating, which is convenient, unlike other stories where the main character must start at the lowest possible rank for style points. Tapping the card on the terminal, he proves its legitimacy as the system recognizes his identity. However, it warns him that the rank is still too low for the dangerous quest he is about to undertake. This is quite annoying to our boy, who thinks he should have pressed the bastard for a higher rank. Despite the system's repeated warnings not to enter a gate so far above his level, Dojan doesn't give a damn and proceeds anyway. Let's break down the specifics of the Night Island gate. It's a B-rank gate, but that doesn't mean a B-rank hunter can actually survive it. Hunters are always advised to be one class higher than the gate's rank for mission safety. The dungeon's scale is considered D-rank, meaning it's vast and difficult for solo hunting. The good thing, however, is its tunnel-like structure, which means to some capacity, solo hunting won't be that hard for him this time. Because of the gate's scale, it is highly recommended an A-rank hunter take on the task. But the words risk and danger don't exist in our boy's dictionary. If anything, the worst that could happen is he'll face a horde of monsters in a narrow tunnel with little to no room to maneuver. Dojan grins at his first opponent, a giant serpent emanating a chaotic purple aura. For most hunters, this is terrifying, but for him, it is a sign of good fortune as he readies his gauntlets to begin the battle. Oh, and by the way, the serpent has brought plenty of its friends along too, and their tongues are straight out of a horror film. Anyway, they launch their attack, but it is utterly pointless. Our boy is a killing machine, snatching and collecting mana stones as if the monsters never existed. The Black Killing Viper is a monster class known for a fast-acting paralytic poison that can incapacitate anyone with the slightest contact. With that in mind, Dojan propels himself forward at bullet speed and launches a full-force attack. In a short span of time, he slices relentlessly into the creature's body, splashing blood everywhere until he severs the monster clean in half. With the creature defeated, Dojan calmly moves on, his eyes already searching for the next threat in the darkness. He glances at his equipment. The gloves he bought are keeping the venom from his skin, and for 300,001, they are earning their keep. Returning to the hunt, Dojan targets 4 more of the grotesque, limbless reptiles, and begins blasting straight through their skulls with blinding speed. More blood erupts as the vipers are sent to the afterlife. Dojan stands there, busy clawing through monster flesh, scouring for a cache of magic stones. To his disappointment, not a single one is found, but this is according to the laws of his former world. There, these beasts only had a drop rate of 3% for mana stones. This means that he's got to hunt down at least hundreds of them for any decent loot. Pressing onward, he discovers Mr. Bonehead. You might think it's the boss, but Dojan has a different opinion. He taunts the oversized serpent, asking if he's the boss monster, as if the snake would actually answer like an old friend. Anyway, Dojan thinks it's a good thing this behemoth appeared, since he won't have to worry about getting lost. Spiraling into an immediate assault, he plans to end the battle quickly and return home. But then, the unthinkable happens. Despite landing a clean, brutal strike, his punch has absolutely no effect on the creature. He just gave it a tattoo on its head instead. While he's airborne and unable to dodge, the creature smashes him into the wall with its tail. Dojan slumps where he crash-landed. It was a harsh reality check on the boss monster's true strength. The creature whips out its venomous fangs and hisses at him like your average girlfriend when she's hangry. The monster attempts to bite him, but luckily, he evades the lunge. Using the momentum from his dodge, he snaps back into motion with a powerful punch that connects with the creature's body, sending more cracks across its hardened shell. From this second attack, one thing has been made painfully clear to him. The boss monster has an unusually tough exterior, making it a far greater challenge than the vipers he just disposed of. The shell is so powerful at his current level that he can't penetrate it with one strike alone. The situation is now reversed, making him question if he should try a different battle strategy. At his original strength, the sword god would have wiped the ever-living floor with this beast. But then suddenly, he spots something. It's the sword of the warrior who lost his life fighting this very boss. And now, you all are about to see why he's called the sword god and not the fist god. Even though the weapon is extremely worn out from the fight, he grabs it, believing that a sword is only as competent as its wielder. With that knowledge and the blade now in his hand, he walks toward the monstrous snake. The creature propels itself forward to strike him down again, bursting with incredible speed. Dojan responds by launching high into the air, proudly declaring the creature should be honored. He's going all out to kill it with a sword. Despite the sword's crappy condition, he unleashes so many flashing cuts in a matter of seconds that it leaves the snake's body completely eviscerated. The serious fight has a darkly funny conclusion, with the snake dying in the background while our boy's sword is reduced to dust. It's a good thing he wiped the creature out while the blade was still holding on. With the boss monster dead, Dojan thinks of a smart idea that I don't see many other protagonists implement. He takes off one of the creature's fangs, believing it could be used as a fine material for a short sword with a bit of work. Considering this a reward for his journey, he exits the gate. By the time he emerges, it's already a starry night outside. He spent more time in the B-rank gate than he thought, and the way things turned out only pushed him to pursue and restore his strength back to its peak. He's also a bit relieved his old friends can't see this weak version of him, because that would be humiliating. Back from the hunt, he goes to appraise and sell the magic stones. Before him, there's another hero who has come to present his own great stash of magic stones. The callous receptionist treats him like garbage and points out that the commission rate is a steep 40%. Even the innocent guy can smell the racket behind that absurdly high rate. He questions it, voicing his concerns and claiming to be a normal guy. The receptionist, echoing his earlier exchange with Dojan, clarifies their rate is the lowest among appraisal services. The Gate Center charges 5%, but that figure doesn't include taxes. In the sleazy appraiser's mind, this is a fantastic deal for heroes, a way to earn good money. The cash is given to the hero, who doesn't complain, but does ask with concern about the receptionist's battered face. Hilariously, this guy is still repeating the exact same script, even after having his face smashed in. He plays it off, claiming a psychopath obliterated his guards before giving him this treatment. The hero believes it's the receptionist's fault for employing low-ranking guards at this C-rank establishment. After all, rank isn't the only factor that matters in their world. Skill is paramount. Rank is a flawed metric, not a true measure of a person's Manhwa level up ***. The hero wisely notes that people of the same rank have vast differences in skill, so they can't all be treated identically. There's a huge difference between a lazy guard watching a shop all day and a hero who is actively out there hunting beasts for a living. Though the guy is offering solid advice, the clown of a receptionist just wants him to shut up and leave, which he does, offering to help the little guy if he ever needs it. As he leaves, our protagonist walks right past, looking cold as ice. The moment he sees him, the receptionist flinches and completely freaks out. He points at Dojan, yelling that he's the psychopath who messed him up. Turning to face them, the hero is surprisingly impressed. He notes our protagonist's lean build for his height. Still, the fact that he wrecked the guards here prompts the man to prepare for a fight, asking if he's the troublemaker. What's respectable about this hero is that he isn't offended for petty reasons. He genuinely believes Dojan is abusing his power as a hero to bully civilians in daily life. Naturally, this couldn't be further from the truth, as he only knows one side of the story. Still, it's interesting to see such a realistic character. The receptionist savors the scene, knowing this man is a 7-year veteran hero. If anything happens to him, the receptionist has plenty of connections to abuse by feeding them Dojan's name. Not giving a damn who he is, our protagonist turns and tells the old-timer to get lost. This only provokes the hero further, because now he truly looks like the aggressor. Dojan asks if the man is looking for some kind of revenge. Hearing that, the veteran hero is incensed. However, being a responsible hero with years of experience, he knows it's unwise to fight other heroes, as it almost always ends in death. The mortality rate is actually higher than in a fight against monsters. Remembering that fact, the hero cools down and turns his back, leaving the receptionist speechless. Dojan then turns to the sleazy appraiser, asking if he has a problem that needs addressing. Before the man can answer, he tosses a bag of magic stones to be appraised and cashed out. These valuable gleaming gems are all high-grade magic stones, which makes the receptionist seriously question who this man truly is. The total calculation comes to 150 million. It seems like a fortune, but to Dojan, it's far too little for a single day's work of hunting. He demands the cash, but the receptionist brings up their commission rate, which must be calculated first. This obviously draws a menacing glare from our protagonist. Remembering their deal was for only 1%, he cools off and tells the man to process the payment. Now, inside the appraiser's mind, he wants to beat the hell out of this guy for his audacity. But that can only happen in his imagination, where he can do that. Speaking of which, the receptionist explains that a sum this large requires approval from upper management. Without wasting a breath, Dojan demands he get approval right now. The man quickly phones his boss, whispering the details of their situation. But before a deal is struck, Dojan seizes the phone, coldly telling the boss to expedite the payment. The boss agrees with this, but he only wants the phone handed back to his employee. Returning it with a smirk, Dojan accidentally, or rather, intentionally, smashes the phone into the wall. The employee shivers at his destroyed device as Dojan tells him to prepare the money now that things are settled. And just like that, the receptionist packed numerous bags full of cash. By the end, the guy is left devastated from being strong-armed this way. You might pity him, but remember, he scams nearly half of what ordinary heroes earn after risking their very lives. He is a scumbag. 10 minutes later, the boss arrived at his store, enraged that his employee wasn't answering the phone. The funny thing is, the receptionist threw in the towel and immediately resigned. The boss then sees the phone shattered against the wall, giving him a clear picture of what transpired. Seeing this, he calls Juan, requesting she come there immediately. Juan appears to be a famous young woman with beautiful purplish-pink hair. She's so well known that people are chanting her name, Hunu Yen, and treating her like a celebrity. Not to mention she looks absolutely phenomenal in that outfit. She arrives at the store and stuns the receptionist with her presence, offering him a pleasant greeting with a smile. There's a huge reason everyone makes such a fuss about her. She's the country's 4th S-rank hero in the lineup, absolutely amazing. Rumors have spread that she is the boss's niece, but that makes him wonder what exactly she is doing here. Confirming the claims, Juan says she was called here by her uncle to take care of a reckless hero. Intrigued by the situation, the stylish S-ranker sits down, prepared to hear what's happening. In the next scene, we find our boy with his absolutely sculpted body, meditating under the sun. It's true he hunted for a full day, and yet the rewards he earned from it were not amazing at all. With the way things are going, he is worried about the future. First and foremost, he must reach a level where he can clear S-rank gates on his own. That means he has to train to restore his original strength. You heard right, folks. It's training arc time. Dojun's biggest challenge in this current life is that, unlike his previous world, the mana density here is thin. That means even if he tries his best to gather mana at his current rate, it will take a minimum of 3 years to approach his original strength. Even longer if things get difficult. On the bright side, he could aim for better equipment for combat. But the problem is, even the most pathetic equipment costs hundreds of millions, so that would be a waste of money. Suddenly, a chill runs down his spine as he senses a dangerous presence. Fixing his gaze on Yunyang, he grabs the little girl at full speed and yells for everyone to get inside quickly. Back inside, he seals the room while his grandma anxiously asks what is going on. The entire structure shakes from a loud tremor, making his grandmother flinch and ask in terror if an earthquake is happening. Little Yunyang is in a state of panic, but the truth is, something only our protagonist knows. This is not an earthquake, it's something else entirely. Dojan senses the sharp and violent energy outside. A rift has just ripped open into their world, and it just so happens to have appeared right above their house. Rushing to deal with the problem, he tells his family to stay inside, as the situation is dangerous for them. At full speed, he tears into the entrance of the rift as the last thing he hears are the cries of his grandma and sister calling his name. The scene cuts to the Seoul Hero Association, where its members are immediately alerted to the sudden appearance of a rift over the Mapo region. It appeared 63 days after the last one. Realizing that the White Lion Guild is the closest to Mapo, the manager tells his staff to contact the guild at once and alert nearby heroes to help control the situation. Upon closer inspection of the rift's location, he discovers it appeared above a residential home. This is complicated. For them, this situation is a nightmare. Because if a civilian stumbles into a rift, their death is not a possibility, it is a certainty. The rift seals behind them, and should they perish inside, it begins a 10-day countdown to unleashing a cataclysmic wave of monsters. The ensuing chaos would be uncontrollable, a tide of destruction that would utterly shatter the safety of the entire region. The manager questions who could have possibly interacted with and entered the rift. It's confirmed that Dojan, the home's resident, has taken action. His grandmother explained he entered the rift to protect his family. From this, they deduce he is not a registered hero. This complicates everything, as the odds of an ordinary person returning from a rift are virtually zero, plunging the entire staff into despair. In the next scene, Dojan's venomous stepmom is infuriated upon hearing the news of his sudden awakening. She can't believe it. Her assistant reports that while he's not registered with the Hero Association, they've come to verify his new status. They've confirmed he's now an awakened, a twist of fate that feels like a twisted manhwa level up right in her face, leaving her utterly frustrated. She is livid that Kang Chol-woo was meant to eliminate him, but instead, the attempt only made her target immensely stronger. Exploding with rage, she slams her fist on the table, questioning how they failed to dispose of one man after taking her money for the job. Screaming at manager Lee, she relays a message for Kang Cheol-woo. If he doesn't kill Dojan personally, he will owe her 10 times the original amount. But to her shock, her assistant reveals they may not need to contact the assassin after all. He shares the discovery of the new rift directly over Dojan's house, confirming he entered it, a clear-cut sign he will not be coming out alive. Hongju delights in this news, savoring the implication of his certain demise. She calms, appearing composed for once, and tells her assistant to monitor the situation. Meanwhile, our hero has just arrived inside the rift's domain. He finds himself in a forest, the very same one from his youth. The forest of Padiswa is perfectly reconstructed, down to the smallest detail he remembers. Even the rich mana in the air carries the same familiar weight. Following a path, he smiles, reunited with the all-powerful world tree. This tree radiates mana in its purest form, a divine structure that was the core of his old world's stability. That world began to fall the moment this tree was incinerated, forever corrupting the flow of mana. Yet here, in this rift, the tree stands unharmed. Though the cause is unknown, one thing is certain: he has a chance to reclaim his lost power by absorbing it directly from the tree. Meditating beneath the immense flow of mana, his strength returns with growing clarity. He sat for more than 3 days, foregoing all bodily needs. 10 whole days passed with his focus solely on harmonizing his breathing. But on the 10th night, trouble found him. His meditation is shattered by alien-like creatures, the Volsina, who have come to burn the tree, just as they did in his past. But this time, our hero is here to prevent that world-ending tragedy from ever happening again. The creatures lunge forward to attack. Dojan momentarily regrets not having a water element sword to extinguish them with ease, as the burning monsters roar and close in. But he is so replenished with mana that a weapon is irrelevant. He is the weapon, and his hands are ready to deliver judgment to all. Extending his hand, he projects such overwhelming authority through his mana that it instantly flattens one of the beasts. What you just witnessed wasn't telekinesis. It's a far more potent technique called mana release. And it has the second creature frozen in shock. It's a devastating blast of raw mana, an ability he couldn't dream of using until now. We're witnessing his true power awaken, and if you're excited for what's next, join the conversation below and subscribe to follow his journey. This time. However, the Volcanina creatures are far from finished. In retaliation, they unleash charged blasts from their maws in return. Pulsing laser beams scorch their way toward our boy, who appears calmer than ever. His mana alone shields him from all damage. Advancing on them, ignited by a mana burst, he remarks he's secured the world tree. And now, he's ready to play for a bit and enjoy his training's rewards. The grotesque beasts try another energy blast, but our boy swiftly catches two of them and forces their jaws shut. Their own power overloads and detonates inside their skulls, leaving behind a headless, flaming corpse. The creature's corpses wither, dropping 2 valuable magic stones for his use. But that's just a couple down. Dojan is relishing this, thrilled to claim the Eternal Ember. After defeating them, he joyfully cuts through the monsters, smacking them all down. Grinning, he's glad to claim a huge load of mana stones from them. The one-sided slaughter continues until he wipes them all out. Dojan has won the lottery with how many stones they're dropping. Among them, he finds a small, gold-glowing coin or seed. This is the Eternal Ember. He picks it up, reclaiming more of his power as he crushes the chip, unlocking its flames. The casual way he's playing with the Ember is reminiscent of Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, normally, the ideal strategy here would be to keep gathering mana from the world tree. However, his body has reached its physical limit for mana absorption. The second method involves absorbing the Ember, a true Manhwa level up that alters his mana, transforming it to fire mana. And he does exactly that as his body erupts with a rush of flame energy. Unfortunately, in his past life, he felt zero need for this and ignored the Eternal Ember. However, now he must fully absorb the embers, taking 10 whole minutes for just one. Luckily for him, he's got a whole bunch of them collected, so his goal is absorbing as many as possible. The rift's appearance has sparked public interest. Reporters are gathered around our boy's house while agents and association staff secure the place. Bangyungu is furious because of one guy's arrogance in entering the rift prematurely. I must point out, he's a dead ringer for Yanho from solo leveling, but with a cleaner haircut, I suppose. We also see our protagonist, but with blue hair. This is Kim Hyun-woo, who sympathizes with Dojan's motive to save his sister, but Seonggu isn't buying that excuse, accusing our boy of being a greedy fool unprepared for the consequences. It would have been fine if he'd met his end the normal way, but if he perishes in the rift, it becomes a breach for monsters to pour out, and that's the real issue. Hun-woo asks for Gilma's input. Apparently, Gilma told them to just follow protocol. Hun-woo then questions the recent rifts appearing worldwide in countries like the US, China, Switzerland, Turkey, and the UK. That's one reason Gilma is having a hard time managing so many rifts at once. This phenomenon doesn't happen every day, and yet, some nations were able to easily contain the threat with ease. But South Korea is furious because their situation could become a disaster, all because of one guy. Seonggu is so enraged he wants to beat the hell out of the guy and is praying the rift spits him out. Speaking of the gargantuan purple gate, 28 days have passed since it appeared. That's how many days Dojun has been inside. Now, the Hero Association is afraid, already classifying the threat as a level 1 wave. Dojun's identity remains hidden from the world for privacy reasons. For now, they're calling him Ordinary Person S. While the world is clueless about Dojan's identity, the head of the money-lending organization quickly connects the dots. His assistant even confirms the report, verifying his involvement in the incident. Kim Yong-gu plays as the president's right-hand man, Hang Chong. Changab is curious about Dojan's chances of emerging alive. The assistant is certain an ordinary person has less than a 1% chance of survival. But calling Dojun an ordinary person carves a smirk on Changab's face. That same regular man hospitalized his men for weeks. The world is vastly underestimating the abilities of the lone civilian who entered the rift. Changab now asks about the survival odds for an awakened individual. His assistant believes it depends on the hero's level, a call impossible to make without information. Chong admits combat skill differs from survival instinct, which introduces new levels of complications inside a rift. One thing is certain, the man hasn't changed. Changab will protect Dojan's family, but for vile reasons. He plans to harvest their organs if Dojan dies, and if he lives, pin the blame of debt on him for their care. He is a true parasite. The scene shifts to the mesmerizing world tree. Here, our protagonist trains relentlessly, his body now teeming with flame mana. Time has lost meaning as he's been grinding, absorbing hundreds of firestones. He's gained enough fire mana to freely manipulate it at will. His flame resistance has also increased. Comparing his past and current fire abilities alone, he believes he has surpassed his former self by mastering this power. He embraces the world tree, sharing a quiet moment. It has always aided him, both in the past and now. For that, Dojan is deeply grateful for its help. For his mana stones, he weaves a small bag from vines. With the stones secured, Dojan understands he may never see this angelic tree again. Still, He hopes their paths cross if it's ever in danger, because then, he will be ready to protect it with his life. It is a rare moment of peace in his brutal world. That night, Dojan finally emerges from the rift. Fortunately, he senses no one is nearby, suspecting everyone assumed he died and that a monster wave was imminent. However, he detects a powerful presence nearby. Rushing toward the source, he soon stumbles upon two agents, one tense and the other relaxed, Hyunwoo and Seonggu. He recognizes they likely represent the association by their uniforms, meaning capture would be disastrous. To create a diversion, he conjures a ball of flame, launching it into the air. The attack strikes a building, causing a loud explosion on impact. The sound puts Hyunwoo and Seonggu on high alert. Realizing it's fire, they give chase. They find a crowd of people in horror. Seonggu wonders what is happening amid the chaos. Meanwhile, Dojan is impressed with his new flame power. Its precision is a sign of a true manhwa level up. In memory of his friend Tusk, he wonders if the mage would be impressed by his current flame mastery. Tusk was, after all, the continent's strongest fire mage, and a close friend. Suddenly, Hyunwoo's sharp senses draw him to the rift. It seems unstable, and before their eyes, it vanishes into mist. Both agents rush to the location. Upon arriving, they see the rift's connection to their world is gone. As for our hero, he moves toward his next target unimpeded. News breaks the following morning about the state of the rift, the one that plagued Mappo for 1 month. It's announced the rift vanished 29 days after So Dojun entered, proving the fears of the Hero Association wrong about a monster wave. They are clueless about the rift's sudden disappearance, and are currently investigating what transpired. They're also struggling to explain the fire that erupted in a junkyard as the rift vanished. This leads the public to believe Seo Dojun is dead, a consequence of his own recklessness. But unknown to them, our hero is hidden in plain sight, watching the public's divided opinions as some mourn the boy who lost his life. Unfortunately, the rift's disappearance is crushing news for our hero. He's devastated, now severed from the World Tree. Even though he can no longer protect the World Tree, one thing remains for him to defend. This brings us back to the HCS capital. Inside, the fools are celebrating Dojun's supposed death, certain they can eliminate the old woman and his sister next. Changob is the kind of monster who enjoys crushing people's lives. One degenerate suggests letting the sister mature for their own vile purposes. As they speak freely, a familiar voice cuts in, demanding their boss. The scene abruptly shifts, and we then get to see Changob, humming as he starts his day, satisfied that Dojun is finally gone for good. His assistant reviews the schedule for today. He's mostly free, save for a lunch with another CEO. This pleases him. Tonight he will celebrate to his heart's content, at a club owned by Madame Kang. It's all idle talk until he enters the building, and, climbing the stairs, finds his men being thrown about like rag dolls. Blood spatters the walls, and the cause is someone he thought was dead. Our hero hurls him to the ground, telling the filth Changob to crawl to him like a dog. That bone-chilling command makes the company president quiver. Our hero acts like the true leader, taking his seat in the chairman's chair. He repeats his order to the stunned Changob, who is still processing the sheer audacity of the command. Wasting no time, he crawls. Ruthless as ever, Dojun orders him to bark, because he deserves to be treated like an animal. The loud, clear command has Changob whimpering in humiliation. It takes a moment for him to successfully bark, but our hero is far from satisfied. He personally ensures an animal is made of him, forcing repeated barks for all to hear. The president is reduced to less than human, just like those he victimized. Dojun notes that scum like him only feign obedience on the surface, but will backstab you the moment they see an opening. Calling out his filthy name, he chillingly informs the man his life is full of experience dealing with second-rate humans like him. Pleading and begging, Changob promises to serve like a loyal dog, but Dojun has heard enough and delivers a heavy slap across his face. That single blow is enough to knock the wind from him and draw blood. His assistant watches the scene unfold until his own name is called. Dojun names him the new boss, recommending he stop serving a bastard like him. Knowing these types are eager to betray, he orders the assistant to eliminate Changob with his full permission. Of course, it is a task too heavy for a mere subordinate. He apologizes and objects, stating their leader has powerful connections, so things would get messy if he were appointed boss instead of Changob. On his behalf, the assistant begs Dojun to spare the man just this once. However, Dojun has no time for mere words. He suggests wrapping Changob's body in a barrel and erasing all evidence by dumping it in the endless ocean. After all, it is a specialty of theirs. Seeing that the boss's underlings are unwilling, instead of obliging, he takes a darker approach. Dojun threatens to hurl them all into the gate as monster fodder if they don't carry out his order. The mere threat reduces Changob to a pathetic wreck. He breaks down completely, begging desperately for his life, swearing he will never betray him and will serve Dojan forever. This forces our hunter into a moment of contemplation. He could easily kill Cheongsab now and erase the problem, but something within him has changed. He admits it to himself. Dojan has grown softer compared to his merciless former self. So this time he agrees, offering the man a hand. I'm sure Changob is about to find religion after this, praying to God he never angers Dojan again as he takes the hero's hand, vowing unconditional service from this day forward. But wait, something is terribly wrong. Why is his hand suddenly engulfed in searing flames? Yes, Dojan has softened, but he is still ruthless. Staring the man dead in the eye, he reminds the traitor this is his final chance. Dojan then rips the man's hand clean off, reducing it to a blackened ruin. By the meeting's end, he walks away, ignoring the president's agonized screams. He leaves them with one final, chilling warning. If a single one of them ever threatens his family again, Dojan will personally guarantee their deaths. Their new job is now a life sentence. They are responsible for protecting his family for the rest of their lives. That is how you handle traitors. Officially, the man named Seo Dojun was a mere blip in existence, one who vanished within the rift. In reality, he's eating at a local fast food joint. The government, the Hero Association, and all media outlets moved on, treating him like old news. They wrote off the civilian who entered the rift as a dead man. Even if he emerged and declared he was alive, nobody would believe it. Besides, surfacing after a solo mission would only bring him unwanted trouble. That broken dog, Huang Chang-so, is now helping him find a new, suitable house, allowing him to move at his own pace. Dojan finally gets the chance to treat his sister to some fast food. He tells her of their plan to move to a better neighborhood, and she could not be happier. She can now attend kindergarten like other kids and start elementary school next year. But when school came up, little Yunyong's mood suddenly soured. Dojan was alarmed. He slaughters monsters, but comforting a child is not in his skill set. He was stunned when his sister confessed that other kids tease her for being an orphan. Hearing his little sister's pain shattered Dojan's heart. If she doesn't want to deal with cruel kids, she won't have to. Those little monsters will get what they deserve someday. Discovering that she wouldn't have to face bullies at kindergarten anymore, Yunyong was ecstatic. Inwardly, Dojan plots to send his sister to a prestigious private school where no one would dare disrespect her. That night, So Dojan learned that Kim Young-gu had stashed his family in some random motel while he was trapped in the rift. The fool nearly broke his back, apologizing, reasoning that the motel was under their company's management, making it safer than any other place. Dojan lacked the energy to deal with minions tonight, so he just entered the room to see his grandmother again. Little Yunyong tackled him in a hug, and his grandma held his hand, tears welling in her eyes. She was just relieved her grandson had returned alive. At first, the hardened warrior was stunned, but feeling the warmth of his family, he accepted the love they showed him with a faint smile. Little Yunyong had taken a liking to fast food, so they'd been eating there often. Today, she asked about her big brother's job as a hero. When asked if she liked it, Yunyong simply answered that she did not. While it's cool that heroes are strong, they're also always in danger, fighting terrifying monsters. Sometimes, they even get killed. And little Yunyong just wants her brother to live with her and grandma for a long, long time. Dojan was so accustomed to mindless slaughter, having someone to worry for another was an alien feeling. In the brutal past, he was humanity's last survivor, fighting monsters and creatures beyond all nightmare. In the process, he had lost absolutely everything. Now, given a second chance, something incredibly precious had appeared at his side. Feelings long buried were now resurfacing. In this world, maybe he could live happily. Maybe he could live a quiet life of joy and love. While he felt this inner warmth, Korea's Hero Association was in shambles. Nate Wong, founder of the Korea Hero Association and a director of the World Hero Federation, was stressing over the recent rift incident or the lack thereof. Their best people investigated the site, but no new information was found. Feeling clueless about the threat to his territory was frustrating the founder. It was plausible that a spontaneously vanishing rift could reappear at any time. His assistant agreed with his worries. She thought it would have been better if a wave had occurred. At least they would not have to worry about unknown variables. Director Tae Wong cut her off before his anger grew. While worried about uncertainties, he felt it was fortunate that no one was harmed. Nai Wong is one of the top 100 respected and strongest heroes in the world. It is speculated he would be easily elected with the most votes in history if he ever ran for president. His words and influence could topple domestic conglomerates if he wished. Thankfully, his interests lie in neither a nation's power nor a conglomerate's wealth. The only thing he truly cares about is the safety of his people. In other words, he's a true protector. Even if it takes time, he wants a more thorough investigation of the rift's perimeter. The residents in the nearby area have already agreed to sell their properties to the association, so that poses no problem. As compensation, Taewong wants to offer those people more than the market price for their homes. That was the least they could do after causing such an inconvenience. All reliable sources relayed that multiple rifts have occurred in different countries. No matter how you looked at it, something big was happening. The United States and China had already entered the control stages for their rifts. It was a global race, a real-life, Manhwa level up, against an unknown threat. Yet, the United Kingdom faced the biggest problem. While veteran heroes were sent to clear other rifts, the United Kingdom squad was a catastrophic failure. Their month-long mission to cleanse the UK rift had finally crumbled into a glaring defeat. The UK rift wave has officially begun. The city and its people went about their day, just as they normally would. Amongst the crowd moved CEO Dojan, blending in. His destination was his favorite shop in the hero complex. When he entered the door, the man at the counter greeted him by instinct, but choked upon seeing his face. Every strand of hair on his body stood in terror upon seeing the dark-haired young man. Today, his manager was in the store, so he wouldn't face this sadistic customer alone. The manager promptly closed the paper he was reading and lifted his gaze. His voice was controlled but was tinted with anger. This was the guy who's been forcing his spineless cashier into buying low-grade crystals. Dojan lazily removed his backpack and tossed the whole thing onto the ground. It was good that the manager was here. The sale of his magic crystals would proceed faster. The manager expected another batch of low-grade crystals to spill on the floor. He's not interested in such small-time business. Dojan dislikes being turned away when all he wants is a fair trade. The manager or any other sane business owner cannot afford to accept just a 1% fee. It would be better if the young man just left. Dojan asserted that refusing to do business with him would be a massive mistake that the manager would regret. The manager continued to chew the young man out, not even bothering to look at the bag. This was the last warning he would give before things went down. In response, Dojan kicked the backpack, spilling its contents on the tiles. Being experienced crystal traders, they instantly recognized the stone's immense value. That crude bag held a shocking power, and if you want to see it unleashed, we invite you to subscribe and join the discussion below. Packed with Hero's magic crystals, a legendary treasure beyond all price, Dojan knew precisely what these stones were worth. He was holding a kingdom's ransom. This was premium power. These crystals were notoriously used by the infamous cartel kingpin, Carcelian, in his New Age narcotic manufacturing. One night, a catastrophic lab accident rewrote his destiny and the world's. The blast fused the crystal's energy with Carcelian, triggering his awakening as a terrifyingly powerful hero. Since then, the crystal became a priceless artifact for awakenings and mana enhancement, an impossibly rare energy source, classified as an ultra-premium commodity. In a cold power play, Dojan ordered the lackeys to pack it up and turned to leave. The manager immediately switched his arrogant tone to one of fawning desperation. He personally escorted Dojan to the VIP lounge, offering drinks while his cashier frantically polished the gems. Dojan savored flipping the script. 1 second, he was worthless trash. The next, he was sipping an iced beverage. His opening salvo, full price, with a 0.5% commission. The second the manager balked, he threatened to kill the deal. In past deals, Dojan had settled for 1%. Now he was having that paltry rate, purely out of spite for their disrespect. In response, the manager bowed his head, attempting the most sincere apology he could fake. But Dojan was done with hollow apologies. They could accept his rate, or he would take his business elsewhere. It was that simple. At the counter, the cashier silently cursed Dojan for being an arrogant prick. Seeing his act wouldn't sway the kid for a better cut, the manager tried a lecture on magic crystal markets and complex pricing models. Dojan had no time for such long-winded garbage. He finished his drink and rose from his seat, sending the manager into a full-blown panic. Feeling the deal of a lifetime slipping away, the manager blurted out a 9% commission. It failed. He offered 8%. This desperate spiral continued from 8 to 7, 6, and then 5%. In this range, his shop would earn nothing. As the manager wallowed in despair, Dojan pounced. He agreed to settle for 1%, feigning respect for their past dealings. Inwardly, the manager wanted to scream and curse the blatant extortionist, but he just couldn't bear to lose the product. Then, Dojan's next words nearly made the manager's heart stop with sheer, unadulterated greed. Aside from the bag he brought today, he had about 7 more just like it. With that revelation, the contract was materialized and signed in record time. After a few minutes, 67 billion won flooded into Dojan's bank account. That's nearly $48 million. This was a true Manhwa level up. His 110 billion won dream house no longer seemed so distant. The problem remained. Farming high-grade crystals from normal gates was a tedious grind. If he could find a way to freely navigate rift zones, he could plunder treasures like a demon king. While scrolling on his phone, a nationwide administrative alert was sent out to every citizen. The wave outbreak in the southern United Kingdom had finally been announced to the public. In the meantime, all travel to the UK was now forbidden. Reading about a real crisis in the real world, Dojan lost all interest in toying with the manager. In his previous life, no matter the country or association, he might have stepped in to seal the rift himself, but he was not that man anymore. He had far more personal matters to attend to. Tonight, dinner was on Dojan, and they were feasting on expensive meat. Little Yunyong's mouth watered at the sight of perfect pork and beef marbling over the hot grill. The pricey meat and decadent side dishes just kept arriving at the table. Worried that they were spending far too much, Grandma paused and asked her grandson if this was truly okay. 250,000 won for 100 grams was astronomical. Dojan dismissed her worries instantly. After the killing he just made, they could eat until they passed out, and it wouldn't even make a dent in his bank account. Yunyong's first bite of the wildly luxurious beef was pure ecstasy. Dojan simply kept piling more and more onto the grill as Grandma watched in stunned apprehension. Hell, another platter of fresh ribs, prime ribeye, strip loin, and skirt meat was already on its way. Table soon. The scale of the meal was simply obscene. How could 2 adults and a child possibly finish this much food? Grandma just couldn't grasp the appetite of a true protagonist. To snap her out of her worries, little Yunyong persuaded Grandma to try the expensive meat. It was impossible to refuse the offer from her sweet girl, so Grandma gave in. A single bite of that premium meat was enough to make all her anxieties vanish. Afterward, the happy family enjoyed their lavish dinner, their table filled with smiles. But unknown to Dojan, an attention-commanding young woman had just entered the restaurant. The heads of other guests nearly broke as she passed. The woman made a beeline for Seo Dojun and decisively called for his attention. She only wanted to speak with him for a moment, nothing more. Before she could state her reason, Dojan cut her off for daring to interrupt his family's dinner. If she wanted to talk, she could wait until the meal was over. Hun Yun presented her name card, expecting the young man to change his tone at her name. To her shock, Dojan just continued grilling and eating meat, ignoring her presence entirely. And so, the renowned S-rank hunter swallowed her pride and patiently sat in the restaurant's waiting room. With a star like her sitting among normal people, she instantly became the center of attention. Men and women alike kept stealing glances at the woman standing at the very pinnacle of heroism. She's not just 4th in the national S-class rankings, many would place her within the top 10 most beautiful heroes on the planet. Every civilian there wondered the same thing. Who in the hell is making Hun Yan wait? Ignoring the obvious whispers around her, Hun Yan recalled their brief interaction. From what she knew, Seo Dojun entered his first gate only 2 months ago. He emerged alive, and is now suspected of being awakened. He was widely reported as dead in the recent Mapo Rift incident, but here he was, alive, and eating with his family. Besides all the details that made no sense, a single sharp look from the young man had an S-ranker like her on edge. A newly awakened man cannot possibly achieve that kind of ***Manhwa level up *** to S-rank in under 2 months, right? Even the oil tycoon Kafmore, who spent a fortune on magic stones, took about 5 months to reach the summit. Rationalizing what she felt, Hun Yan figured Dojan must have some kind of unknown special ability. Finally, Dojan, Grandma, and little Yunyong, their bellies full and spirits lifted, stood to leave. Near the exit, Hun Yan approached to finally have a conversation with the enigmatic young man. Before she could open her mouth, another party swaggered into the restaurant with an air of superiority. Dojan's eyes turned sharper than ice at the sight of the man. This scummy-looking bastard never expected to see Dojan alive and well after their excursion into one of the death gates, the lunatic Kang Chil-woo. He seemed genuinely amused by Dojan's cockroach-like resilience. Even Hun Yan appeared to recognize the troublemaker in a single glance. In the middle of the restaurant, tension rose as a heavy silence filled the air. Dojan chose to ignore the bastard's shallow insults and called Hun Yan over. Chil-woo was stunned to see an S-rank hero conversing with the cockroach. Dojan requested that she take care of his family for a little bit. All she had to do was hail a taxi so they could ride away and go home. It would be more convenient if they were far away while he collects a long overdue debt from a mongrel. Thankfully, Hun Yan is a very reasonable young woman. She did what Dojan asked and assured Grandma and the little girl that everything would be fine. She waved goodbye, but their concern was obvious. Hun Yan stood awkwardly there as the taxi departed. As soon as they sped away from the restaurant, a resounding, crisp slap echoed inside the establishment. With his loved ones out of the picture, Dojan could finally drop the civilized act and slap a fool. He moved so fast that Chil-woo did not even see his swing. He only felt the stinging pain in his cheek. Embarrassed by such a humiliating attack, Chil-woo gritted his teeth and charged forth to retaliate. One of the servers tried to break the fight up, fearful that the awakeners might destroy the whole restaurant if the conflict escalated. Her reasonable request was met with unreasonable violence. Fortunately, though she wasn't harmed, Dojan calmly told everyone to get out, clearing the room for their safety. Kang Chi-woo is an easily triggered, simple-minded brute, who can't even manage decent trash talk. For that, he was punished with another strike to the face, catching him completely off guard, feeling knuckles connect with his head. Kang Chi-woo is the fiend who locked the original Dojan in a gate, leaving him for dead. Though not personally slighted, our MC harbors a deep resentment for this worthless face, and he wants to talk. Kang Chi-woo, the goblin-faced goon, snickered while revealing Dojan's evil stepmother orchestrated the whole thing. Seeing that extracting info from this idiot was far easier than he thought, Dojan pulled out his phone and hit the record button. He just needs a clear recording of the confession, and his life will become much simpler. Once again, Kang Chi-woo was insulted by his nonchalance. He gathered power, insulted Dojan's mother with a vile curse, and attacked with unmatched intensity. He intends to finish the job he failed. He wants to kill Dojan for good. Unfortunately for the large goon, his primitive attacks are no match for expert chi manipulation. Dojan met the punch with a soft touch and sent the enemy's fist flying as if it hit an impenetrable, yielding barrier. Kang Chi-woo had never experienced this before. Normally, he would brute force his way through anything to kill. Now, he faced someone beyond his comprehension, a true manhwa level up in the flesh. with his tiny pea-brain. Suddenly, he was thrown off his feet. Dojan followed his trajectory like a hunter toying with his prey. Sounds of fists cracking bone echoed through the restaurant as the server tried her hardest to dial the police. Before she could press the call button, a delicate hand pulled the phone away. With a bright smile, Hyunju Yen assured the server she would handle everything, so there was no need to involve the authorities. The server was just glad to see a comforting face amid her breakdown. Slaps, scratches, and punches landed all over Kang Chi-woo's body, giving him no chance to breathe. As far as Yen knew, this lowlife is a B-rank hero. At that rank, not many people could beat him so helplessly. Based on this beatdown, Dojan might be classified as an A rank. Well, even if that's true, the fight still seemed far too one-sided. Before things got worse, Hyunju Yen cautiously asked Dojan to stop. She was worried Kang Chi-woo might die if the beating continued much longer. Listening to her, he dropped the goon's limp body to the ground and wiped his hands. Seeing the clear vendetta between them, Yen asked the young man how much he knew about Kang Chi-woo. Dojan might not know the whole story, but he knew enough about the bastard to exact his vengeance. Hyunju Yan warned him that this scum, Kang Chi-woo, is connected to Kang Yong-pyo, an S-rank hero. Well, Dojan already knew that, and he didn't see a problem. Yan had never met anyone so insane. This man didn't even care about the consequences he might face from an S-ranker. Hyunju Yan elaborated that Kang Yong-pyo is very protective of his delinquent cousin. This restaurant incident will surely reach that powerhouse. When that happens, blood will be shed. Dojan scoffed at Yan's worries. He's the last person who would fear some hotshot S-ranker. More than the problems ahead, he's more annoyed that Yan knows so much about his life. Now that the goon is down, Dojan's animosity shifted to the nosy S-ranker. Face to face, the feral young man stared her down. Yan was no pushover by any means. She wouldn't cave from simple eye contact. Changing the subject, she apologized for the visit and stated her agenda. She was asked by her uncle to come and talk after she found out about the bag of Hero's magic crystals he sold. Yin wanted to get her hands on the rest. She is willing to buy every piece he has, regardless of price. Dojan warned her that it won't be cheap. He has many precious treasures stockpiled. She assured him the assets of an established S-ranker would suffice. Heroes operate beyond mortal imagination. He's not opposed to a sale, but he has one condition before any transaction. It's a small thing, really. Just a minor favor. At least for someone as renowned as Heo Na-yoon. Meanwhile, the sound of expensive alcohol, bottles shattering can be heard. Dojan's evil stepmother is spiraling, learning new information about her allegedly dead stepson. Her people were certain the kid died in the rift. Yet now she's receiving word that Dojan survived like a resilient cockroach. Press F for the bald man. Having a boss like her can't be fun. You can't blame him for the bad intel. Even the Hero Association had labeled Dojun dead. The evil stepmother doesn't want excuses. She demands action. To make things worse, they just got news of Kang Chi-woo's defeat at the hands of Dojun. By now, it's certain Seo Dojun knows who tried to have him murdered. A true Manhwa level up from prey to predator. The evil stepmom swallowed in terror. She's not afraid of Dojun. She's more concerned about the fallout when her father or husband finds out about her dealings. She can bury this, but if word gets to the media, the group's stock will nosedive. So, she ordered her people to intercept the media. If they fail, T Group and W Group will cut all deals and ads. First and foremost, the police must also be on their payroll. In that regard, her people have already moved to cover all bases. Knowing they had some competence lifted a bit of pressure off her shoulders. Director Lee then whispered that no matter how many cover-ups they manage, it's not a fundamental solution to the real problem. On that note, the director might have a plan to end this headache. They just need to make use of Kang Chi-woo's cousin, the infamous Kang Yong-pil. Even the stepmom knows of the S-ranker. Kang Chi-woo may be notorious trash in the hero world, but everyone knows how close he is to his powerful cousin. In reality, Kang Chi-woo is just a pawn doing dirty work under his cousin's orders. They are both twisted. If Chi-woo gets caught and smeared by the media, it won't look good for the S-rank hero either. In fact, he's already moved to handle this PR disaster. The evil stepmom made up her mind. She wants to meet with Kang Yong-pil as soon as possible. Also, that Ker Hwang Chong Sob of HS has blatantly sided with the enemy. He's protecting Dojun's family now. For that, she wants a prosecutor on the phone in 1 minute. Those who abandon her will pay the price. The very next day, we follow a group of heroes entering one of Korea's 37 rift zones. Among them, 5 zones have become secured gates. The rest can only be raided by heroes affiliated with hero associations on coordinated schedules. Today, Miss Heo Na-yoon is leading a team herself. With her S-rank ID, she has practically limitless entry to any gate. Among the heroes, with their fancy gear and weapons, stood a young man in a beat-up hoodie. Heo Na-yoon chose the A-rank Chanma Guild as a temporary group for the hunt. It's rare to join an S-ranker's hunt, so they are hyped. Na-yoon reasoned she simply wanted to have some fun and stretch her muscles a bit. In reality, she orchestrated this entire situation just to give the young man in the back clean entry to the gate. Seo Dojun agreed to sell his remaining magic crystal stockpile at market price if she let him into the restricted rift zone. He just wants to earn more money by hunting in higher-level zones. While it's true that these rifts hold all sorts of treasures, entering such a dangerous one for mere profit without fear is just insane. Well, she doesn't really care. She just needs to get her hands on those hero-grade magic crystals. After a few minutes in a dark tunnel, the group finally emerged on the other side into a brightly wooded area. Unable to curb her curiosity, Inju started pestering Na-yoon about the real identity of the man shadowing their party. Na-yoon just introduced Dojun as someone she knows, but no one bought that flimsy answer. Inju speculated he might be Queen Na-yoon's secret boyfriend. Tired of the buzzing, she walked away, offered Inju a half-truth, confessing the young man was there because she owed him a favor. An S-rank hero, indebted to someone, was rare indeed. While the party was lost in their own conversations, a giant shadow blotted out the sun from above. All eyes shot skyward and saw the approaching beast. As an A-rank guild, the Clio heroes reacted instantly, drawing weapons and falling into their positions. The first encounter was none other than the feared cockatrice. Like the expert raider she is, Jian took command, barking out clear and concise orders. Jingu and Dian were on defense while Sun Ho would aim for the legs. Before she could finish assigning roles, a figure blurred as he shot past everyone. With one explosive leap, he closed the aerial gap between himself and the flying beast. Dojan disregarded their drawn-out group plans and lunged for a one-on-one with the creature. The Clio heroes were utterly slack-jawed. They had never seen someone so brazen. Gathering energy in his fist, Dojan prepared to draw first blood. Just before his charge, Guildmaster Inju was stressing over their bad luck. They were barely inside the gate, and a troublesome opponent had already revealed itself. Before the group could organize, Dojan had already dropped his bag to the ground. While Jian was still calling the shots, he was blasting through the air like a speeding bullet. He was an absolute demon of speed. In one jump, he nullified the bird's aerial advantage. High in the skies, he seized control of the battlefield without issue. His fiery energy was thick and searing. The overgrown chicken did not have the speed or reaction time to block his incoming attack. As a result, it was forced to take a full-powered punch directly to the beak. The beast was on the ground, and the human was descending from the clouds. It was a poetic reversal. Dojan landed before the group. He hadn't even broken a single sweat. The cockatrice was on the verge of death, the imprint of his fist visible on its face. The members of the Clio Guild stood dumbfounded alongside their S-rank leader. They then bore witness to the sheer brutality of what came next. Dojan lifted his boot and began stomping the bird's head until it was reduced to a crimson pulp. It seemed excessive, but felling a cockatrice requires overwhelming force. With every stomp, the sound of cracking bone and splattering gore mortified the group. Now, Inju was truly desperate to know who that man was. In all honesty, Jian wasn't entirely sure herself. All she knew was that Dojan was an incredibly powerful human. Well, calling him just strong was a colossal understatement. There are only a select few heroes who could do what Dojan just did. Slaying a cockatrice in a single blow is no ordinary feat. Jian downplayed this achievement by bringing up her sister, a woman on that elite list of exceptional heroes. Still, Inju couldn't shake that a hidden titan was among them. This felt like a real-life Manhwa level up. She watched the entire exchange, awestruck the entire time. Jian noted the young man's monstrous power and decisiveness. Her curiosity deepening, she turned to Inju with a sudden change of plans. For now, she wanted to go to the center with Dojan, leaving the rest of the group on the outskirts. Jian carefully approached the young man, who was expertly carving the cockatrice's corpse for its spoils. Before she could speak, he preemptively stated he wouldn't share loot with people who contributed nothing to the kill. Thankfully, Jian wasn't one to covet a few magic crystals. She simply came to propose they venture a bit deeper into the gate, to head somewhere more challenging and fitting for his current abilities. With a smile, he readily accepted the invitation to hunt bigger prey and claim more loot. Jian knew the layout of this gate quite well, so she would take the lead. All Dojan had to do was follow closely so he wouldn't get lost. Without warning, she rocketed off into the distance, her speed creating a sonic boom. Dojan calmly watched as her figure vanished over the horizon. After slinging his bag onto his back, he took a runner's pose, storing immense energy in his muscles. With an explosive first step, he kicked up a shockwave that nearly blew the Clio Guild heroes away. Inju reckoned that if Jian was a bullet, then that man moved like light itself. Left behind by the two powerhouses, the other heroes turned to their guild leader for their next move. A new reality. Keeping pace with the two ahead was now utterly impossible. Today, they were forced to accept their roles as mere spectators. This is still a decent gate, with plenty of monsters to hunt on the fringes. In the outside world, people praise them as powerful A-rank heroes, but before a true S-ranker, they are nothing. Shuan and that man are leagues beyond the Clium Guild's entire force. Speaking of them, their frantic race across the woods proceeds hastily. Maintaining a blistering pace effortlessly, Juan kept checking her flank for any sign of Dojan. Seeing nothing, she began to relax, thinking she had overdone the initial sprint. While she was thinking of slowing, Dojan materialized by her side, asking if they could go faster. Juan's concentration shattered, and she nearly tripped. She had never experienced this before. Someone could actually keep up with her in a race. When it comes to speed, she is top 2 in the nation, but that list might need an update, given how Dojan is leaving her behind. Moments later, he stopped to tease her for being slower than he expected, when she was clearly running to showcase her speed. As the S-ranker caught her breath, Dojan's gaze shifted to the horizon. Before them stood a massive mountain range touching the heavens. When asked what hid inside that range, Juan's expression turned grim. That place is the lair of the Thrift's boss monster, the Carcelian. You see, this Carcelian is a giant 20-meter monster, resembling a draconic wyvern. Shuyan refuses to even entertain the idea of subjugating that beast. You typically need at least 3 combat-oriented S-rank heroes to even stand a chance against such a monster. One thing Dojan knows is the Carcelian can drop an imaginary grade magic crystal, a treasure just below the highest grade possible. Since such an enticing reward awaits, he will not let it slip away. Obviously, Xuan is opposed to such a reckless idea. Well, say Dojan is fighting that draconic beast with or without her. Juan watched as he fearlessly accelerated, aiming to scale the mountains to slay the beast. She felt she had no choice but to follow him into madness. Something grim awaits the duo inside the boss's lair, as he bursts with confidence to take down a beast that gives 3 S-rank heroes trouble. It truly shakes Juan to her core. But you know what's even more shocking? When she arrives, she finds that same creature, the Carcelian, dead at her feet. The fight is already over, and she has absolutely no idea what happened. Our boy casually plucks his knife from the creature's corpse, leaving her at a loss for words. Juan processes her shock. The creature he just felled isn't just any boss monster. On that note, she recalls a prominent hero named Park Hale, who built a reputation hunting down monsters like the Carcelians. Though an S-rank himself, the first time he went to hunt the Carcelian, he was cautious enough to bring 30 A-rank heroes with him, and yet, despite every precaution, the A-ranks were all annihilated. Park Hale was the only known survivor of that group, clinging to the edge of his life by the end of the boss fight. From that moment on, the man resolved to rematch the same monster. Only this time, he was armed with 1 more S-rank and 100 A-rank heroes behind him. It was practically a small army at that point. The fight was brutal. They focused on piercing the creature's wings and negating its flight. That Carcelian was then overwhelmed by a barrage of attacks from the heroes. This actually reminds me of the whole 100 men versus 1 gorilla debate that has been going around. My money is on the men, by the way. And the same was the outcome for the fight with the Carcelian, who ultimately was defeated. Despite this, only a handful of heroes survived that battle, the rest cut down by the beast's wrath. The damages they incurred that day were so great that Hale's guild, Sweet Life, has yet to recover 3 years after the event. And yet, this one average-looking man has defeated the same Carcelian monster so easily. The funny thing is, with her constant glaring, he reminds her that she isn't getting any of these precious gems for standing around fighting the air. The remark may have annoyed her, but Juan is more focused on this true Manhwa level-up absurdity of the man. It unfolded before her very eyes, a reality so impossible she would have dismissed it as a lie. The terrifying Carcelian, a monster of legend, was not just defeated, it was utterly obliterated, in a single, devastating strike, by the hands of one man. Meanwhile, Dojan calmly harvested the glowing magic stone from the creature's cooling corpse. He gazed at the crystal, then informed her his need for an escort was over. From this moment on, he would walk his own path. He also dismissed the other treasures from the dragon's body, its claws, its teeth. Showing no interest in such priceless artifacts, he turned to reject her offer flatly, leaving the S-ranker utterly stunned. His sole focus remained on harvesting the monster crystals, even going so far as to let her keep all the valuables as a form of payment. Juan glanced at the massive corpse, reaching her own swift conclusion. She too had no need for anything from the beast. As evening fell, the rest of the group stared, shocked that one man had collected 3 full bags of magic stones. It was an unbelievable haul, even for seasoned A-rankers. For their entire guild to gather this much, it would take a minimum of 20 hours. Considering the quality, likely more than 3 days. This begged the question, who was this man? All eyes turned to Julian, who brought him here, yet she seemed just as bewildered as they were. According to Julian's own account, the A-rank guildmaster couldn't fathom how Dojan defeated the Carcelian with no real equipment. This single feat placed him at the pinnacle of Korea's hero ranks, his might unparalleled. He was simply built differently. The A-ranker even believed he might be the world's strongest at his level. This wasn't just growth, it was a true Manhwa level up. An exhausted Dojan then returned, carrying even more bags. In a single day of hunting, he had amassed a fortune. The group realized no one would ever believe them if they reported this to the outside world. Dojan's godlike power was simply too insane to accept. On that note, they were explicitly ordered not to breathe a word of today's events to anyone, an order they had to accept. The S-ranker then approached the young man and spoke about several matters. From a distance, they looked like a couple flirting, but that was merely in the eyes of their teammates, who perhaps hoped this was the start of something. They believed he was the only man in the world who looked like a true match for Julian, given their monstrous strength. Ironically, the A-rank guildmaster soon realized these two were not the perfect couple she'd imagined. Instead, their expressions suggested a tense argument. She couldn't believe a man existed who could speak so bluntly to Juan. More shocking still, Dojun handed her a bag and left quietly, without another word, astonishing the guildmaster even more. As for the bags and the treasures he'd collected, Juan relayed his words. Dojan feared becoming an instant celebrity if the world learned he had slain the Carcelian. Since that unwanted fame was an issue, he thrust the responsibility onto her shoulders. His decision left them both utterly speechless. But ironically, this only fueled Juan's growing curiosity to learn more about this mysterious young man. Elsewhere, we see the renowned S-ranker, Hale, who was mentioned earlier. He is unleashing hell on a punching bag. His assistant watched in awe, as his training seemed fueled by pure rage. As stated before, he is the guild master of Sweet Life. The assistant tried to calm him, reminding him that endurance would serve him well in these trying times. The guildmaster agreed, certain that those who underestimated him would soon suffer his wrath. Soon, they won't admire his strength, they will fear it, as he becomes the most powerful guildmaster. His subordinate continues. He mentions Hyal's streak of hunting Carcelians, which distinguishes him, even claiming his name will be etched in the history books, as the hero who took down the Carcelian with the smallest squad. Ironically, that title will never be taken from Dojan by anyone, unless a dead man walks out of his grave and performs a miracle. The guildmaster shares his enthusiasm with his assistant, boasting about his achievements. Simultaneously, their guild has suffered major losses compared to 3 years ago. Yet, the only thing that brings him a smile is knowing he's the only one capable of besting the Carcelian, a fact his one-eyed servant confirms. On the topic of high-ranking heroes, the scene shifts to Kang Yongpo's office, who is reading a report on Dojun's eventful night with Xiao Wu and how he annihilated Yongpo's cousin. Though Chi Wu's plan was to trap the guy inside the gate for good, a plot twist triggered a shocking awakening. The client who tasked them to eliminate Dojan is Executive Director Hong Heju, who is basically at the very top of Korea's wealthiest elite. It makes no sense for her to single out one person as a target in front of Yongpo until he learns Dojan is her stepson. Though the boy joined their family at age 7, the moment Heju's biological child was born, Dojan was cast out of the family. This fact amuses Yongpo, who notes that not even wealth can save you from being discarded. Discussing the payment, he learns they're getting 3 billion won for the job, a paltry sum to him, and then, there's the fact that Chi Wu is now on the brink of death from his battle against Dojan, with numerous burns and bruises. What's even worse is that he's been blinded and left crippled for life. This only adds to the ruthlessness of Dojan's methods, to the point even a guy like Yongpo must acknowledge his actions. Yet, Yongo delights in the fact that he would have also chopped off his limbs after smashing his skull. At first, you likely thought he was saner than his cousin, but now it's clear he's even more depraved. While discussing their battle, it's mentioned that Juan was also there and allegedly assisted Dojan somehow. This revelation surprises him, and he probes for more details about the situation. He just doesn't understand what's so special about Dojan. Unfortunately, even his assistant knows nothing specific about the meeting between the two, as the case was quietly closed. Utterly enraged, Yongpo grabs his servant, roaring at him to uncover the status of their relationship by any means necessary. Suspecting they may have struck some kind of deal, the terrified assistant flees to investigate at once. Yongpo is left in a tantrum, smashing things, reflecting that Heju's men will now seek him out to complete the job his cousin failed. At the same time, he's more than happy to take the job from her. After all, she's a woman of immense wealth, so it won't be a problem for the greedy scumbag. And now, we cut to our boy, returning home after the raid. From today's experience, he's glad to have spent his time in a rift rather than a gate for a proper hunt. This also complicates things, as he might have to form a long-term relationship with Juan to ensure he stays under the radar. Recalling their conversation, she bluntly told him people will become wary of her and ask about the identity of the person who killed the Carcelian. Revealing it would invite a lot of trouble. So, for now, her plan was to store the valuables, and if he ever wanted to become famous, she could happily reveal their existence. In response, he tossed the bag to her to keep all the valuable loot. It also means he must find another way to enter the rift zones, because relying on Juan creates trouble for her. Still, tonight's sleep will be a good one, resting in the luxurious house that Changab arranged for him. But as he steps inside the house, he is alarmed by the many shoes lined up outside. This can only mean some unexpected guests have arrived. Entering, he sees a group of suited men. Their boss is caught mid-conversation with family. A man, like a grimier version of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, is just staring Dojan down like an eagle. Yunyong rushes to greet her brother, her joy a stark contrast to Dojan's total bafflement. Prosecutor Park Chaoyong announces his identity, loudly connecting Dojan to Changab. Because of this alleged relationship, Dojun is slammed with an immediate emergency arrest for partaking in a loan shark organization run by HCS Capital's corrupt CEO. Letting the situation unfold, Seo Dojun calmly surrendered to this so-called emergency arrest tied to Huang Chang-Siop's operation. He was promptly handcuffed and thrown in a bare interrogation room. From inside, he could hear a pompous voice on the phone outside. The prosecutor who took him in is assuring someone that both Huang Chang-Siop and Seo Dojan are behaving like good little boys. Before hanging up, The prosecutor thanked the caller for handling his daughter's study arrangements abroad. Then he made the mistake of uttering Director Hong's name within Dojan's superhuman earshot. Approaching his silent detainee, the prosecutor yapped about why he became a man of the law. He claimed that, since he was a child, he'd wanted to isolate society's trash from the decent, law-abiding citizens. Slapping a thick file on the table, the scummy prosecutor showed off just how much dirt he had on Seo Dojan. He alleged the preliminary charges listed would be enough to lock the young man away for at least a decade. In addition, they've already squeezed more than enough statements from Hong Chong-siop to nail everyone in the operation. Dojan did not even bother to react to these thinly veiled threats. Since he didn't get the reaction he was hoping for, the prosecutor resorted to cursing, getting straight to the problem's root. Dojan coldly asked if that snake Hong Heju was behind this pathetic legal stunt. The prosecutor was visibly shaken but fiercely denied the accusation, claiming he had never even heard of the name. Dojun figured these crooked bastards had already gotten to Huang Chung-sup. He came along quietly to avoid trouble, but things could get far worse at this rate. Refusing to be intimidated by Dojan's aura, the prosecutor bragged that men in his line of work are not pushovers. In response, the young man leaked a sliver of killing intent to shut him up. The prosecutor nearly soiled himself right then and there. He felt that piercing gaze on a primal level, a direct threat to his own existence. Ashamed he was frightened by a handcuffed perp, the prosecutor wanted to man up and beat the hell out of the detainee. Before committing the last stupid act of his life, an intern interrupted, asking him to step outside the interrogation room for a moment. They'd just received word of a wild discrepancy in Seo Dojun's file. The building's hero detector evaluated the young man as an ordinary person. Even after double-checking, the results remained the same. Based on the incidents Dojun was recently involved in, how could that even make sense? Perhaps they were incorrect labeling the boy an awakener in the first place. The prosecutor got all his information from Hong Heju's inner circle, so the intel was supposedly reliable. Right now, Dojan was an indecipherable puzzle. How could they charge a normal civilian for incidents that involve superhumans? Inwardly, Dojan was mocking the prosecutor for being such an incompetent dog. If he really wanted to, he could just shatter these flimsy cuffs and smash the whole building into bits. A true Manhwa level up moment, but the fallout. He'd have to get Grandma and Yunyang somewhere safer, maybe overseas, before resorting to the most brutish solution. Just then, He Ho-jian, wearing a suit, entered the interrogation room. She must have heard about this wrongful arrest and came to check things out. When asked why he was detained, Dojan frankly answered that he wasn't entirely sure of the reason himself. Thankfully, Jian advised him not to do anything reckless. She might be the only person who knows what this man is truly capable of. The situation is frustrating, but using force now would only make things messier. Jian didn't expect to be here, but she knows Dojan's next move is absolutely critical. Convinced Dojan is being framed for crimes he did not commit, seeing an innocent man face a rigged system before her very eyes ignites her resolve to shatter this injustice. Xuan knew the Hero Association would launch its own probe soon. They would inevitably uncover Dojun's forged hero license and scrutinize the recent Mapo Rift incident. Dojan then asked Juan about his family's well-being, and she felt herself being treated like a mere secretary. But when he stared at her with an unreadable intensity, Juan relented, assuring him his family would be protected. As she left the room, now effectively serving as Dojan's legal counsel, he declared this debt would be remembered. She'd never admit it, but Chuan felt a flicker of satisfaction at him, relying on her. She vowed to resolve this hiccup with lethal speed, and she meant every word. Juan's strategy wasn't a simple, straightforward legal defense. Instead, she unearthed and exposed prosecutor Park Chol-yong's deep-seated corruption and illegal dealings, leading to his utter ruin. With that filth removed, a proper investigation proceeded. Seo Do-jun was cleared of all charges in the Loan Shark operation and other incidents. Yet, he couldn't escape unscathed. As predicted, the inquiry confirmed his use of a counterfeit hero license. Thanks to Julian's aggressive defense, his sentence was reduced to mere probation. While driving home, breaking news of an unknown monster wreaking havoc in England crackled over the radio. It was described as a mantis-like beast, 1.5 meters tall, with ghastly compound eyes and terrifying leaping ability. From the description alone, Dojan identified it as a Macasian. Julian nearly crashed the car, hearing him speak the name. Data on new monsters is a closely guarded secret of the association. She only knew the name because of her status as an S-rank hero. See, monsters aren't named by some random researcher. Upon death, they drop magic stones containing not only raw power, but also unique data. By decoding this information, one learns everything about a monster, including its true name. On modern-day Earth, science is used for this analysis. But in the ruined world, it was magic. In other words, Dojan is intimately familiar with monsters from both realms. He knows their names, their weaknesses, everything. He then casually mentioned that Macasians are easily neutralized with fluid from the red flower ant. It's harmless to humans, but is a powerful paralytic agent to Macasians. One spray, and the rampage ends. Juan's expression hardened. His every word, every action, deepened the enigma. Who is Seo Dojan? No matter how she probed for his true identity, he remained a vault. His mind was already elsewhere, forging a new plan to eliminate all future threats. The only logical solution was to permanently remove that venomous snake, Hong Hee-ju, from the board. And speak of the devil, Director Hong was unraveling, chewing her nails raw with anxiety as she plotted new ways to handle her husband's illegitimate son. With Hyun Jueon now in the picture, the pressure to eliminate the boy intensified. The director's assistant was useless. Even with all their resources, they couldn't uncover the S-rank hero's connection to Dojan. If they made one wrong move against someone of that caliber, no amount of money could save them. More importantly, Hong Hee-ju was terrified by the report that Seo Do-jun registered as a mere civilian, not a hero. This defied everything they knew, making it clear he'd awakened something terrifying, perhaps some bizarre ability to fool their detectors, a kind of twisted manhwa level up. She was bleeding money on this crusade, only to be fed useless speculation. Livid, she finally made the call, contacting the S-rank mercenary, Kang Yong-pil, putting 30 billion won on the table to erase her Dojan problem for good. Upon receiving the call, the scoundrel greedily demanded double the fee to handle this little problem. Even his lackeys found demanding 60 billion for a job to be unreasonable. Simple task. He was a lowlife, but Kang Yong-pil was also a shrewd fiend. He knew that Hong Hee-ju had run out of options. There were no alternative solutions left. Besides, her company's revenue was so vast that 60 billion disappearing from the coffers would hardly be noticed. Furthermore, Hu Nu-yen was now in the equation, as Kang Yong-pil was accepting the risk of battling another S-rank. Doubling the original offer started to seem a bit more reasonable. The subordinate concurred that Hu Nu-yen was indeed a dangerous foe. Hearing his own employee praise another S-ranker wounded Kang Yong-pil's fragile ego. He cursed his underling for doubting his prowess against someone like Juan. He boasted that he could end that fool in roughly 20 minutes. Of course, the underling had to appease his boss, fearing for his life. With a twisted smile, Yong-pil changed the topic to his deal with the Hero Association. He was also negotiating an agreement before flying to the United Kingdom as one of South Korea's delegates to help with the insect infestation. Unfortunately for Yong-pil, the association was tightening its purse strings. Moreover, those crafty bureaucrats already announced the hero dispatch selection process to the public. They were essentially making it impossible for the S-rankers to refuse deployment. Yong-pil might be a thug, but he considered the association a group far worse than thugs. The operation would commence in 3 days. South Korea was sending its best and brightest along with the Japanese heroes. At least Yong-pil could meet with someone named Takashi. As of now, the Malaysian's weakness had not yet been found. Being the one to find such crucial intel was a surefire way to achieve a manhwa level up in the public's eyes. Speaking of Malaysians, those bugs had pushed their advance toward Cambridge in the UK. British heroes had been fighting non-stop to halt the relentless invasion of the giant creatures. They had assembled a respectable team of heroes. Since it was the UK, they primarily used blades in this region. The brave frontliners were struggling to defeat a single giant Malaysian that was terrorizing the public. This mantis had the speed and sharpness to kill slower heroes in one strike. Finding their rhythm, the British heroes countered with a coordinated assault. The group of heroes had a balanced formation, and based on their skill, they were not to be underestimated. Some of them used magic to forcibly rip through the thick exoskeleton. The others then followed up with swift melee attacks, letting the creature's blood spill onto the streets. With proper coordination and enough power, they successfully brought down their first Malaysian. Just to be certain that the damned thing didn't have a second phase or something, they severed its mantis head. The British heroes finally scored a win, but a single monster had consumed everything they had in reserve. To completely crush their spirits, a few more Malaysians emerged to capitalize on the fatigued heroes. That night, the best heroes the UK could muster perished in a brutal and bloody slaughter. They did their best, pouring all their efforts into stopping the inevitable. Without clear intelligence, they were powerless against these unknown enemies. The dreadful Malaysians were now advancing south. The stalwart defense of Cambridge had collapsed. There were now about 60 kilometers between the insects and the capital, London. As the Malaysians were about to begin their final push to erase London off the map, a luminous substance rained down from above. When the fluid hit the bugs, they all seized up, consumed by burning agony. After a few seconds of attempting to resist the effects, the Malaysians fell one by one. The paralytic agent flooded their systems, rendering all their terrifying weapons useless in the face of biological warfare. High in the air, the source of the rain revealed itself. A helicopter was closely tracking the army of mantises from a safe distance. Aboard the chopper were the heroes from South Korea and Japan, the joint cavalry. Every last one of them was shocked that such a simple solution proposed by Hyun Jueon had worked. The red flower ant sap was working exceptionally well. The Malaysians could not resist. They were turned into useless, empty husks. Standing beside Jueon was Kang Yong-pil. In his eyes, there was no way this woman miraculously guessed and hit the jackpot, waking everyone up from their stupor. Jueon seized command, ordering the immediate skydive to terminate the threat. With fresh reverence for Korea's top S-rank hero, the cavalry plunged toward British soil. averting a cataclysmic disaster. Days after the joint operation, the entire world learned of what transpired in the UK, and who the undisputed MVP was. Back in Korea, media and fans swarmed the airport, all desperate for a glimpse of the nation's pride. Reporters and their crews were drooling for an exclusive on Juyeon, the top hunter from the UK expedition. She was the one who discovered the Macassian's weakness and saw the operation through. She single-handedly saved an entire nation from oblivion. It's rumored that, before her departure, she was knighted by the royal family for her valor. When Juyeon finally entered the airport, camera flashes and cheers from the crowd erupted. A true celebrity, she was long accustomed to the spotlight. Trailing her was Kang Yong-po, trying to project an aura despite his ridiculous haircut. Though Juyeon is a public figure, today's intense welcome was still overwhelming. As for Kang Yong-po, he was credited with eliminating the most Macassians on the mission. Remember, he essentially slaughtered, paralyzed, helpless creatures. Their entire contingent of heroes numbered 200. The brilliant performance of Korea's hunters is why the UK still stands today. On the news, details of the Macassian hunt, including the red flower ant sap weakness, were released. Walking through the city, our protagonist Seo Dojun overheard and paused for a moment. He was glad Juan could use his intel, but seeing Kang Yongpo on the Jumbotron soured his mood. That smug-faced bastard on screen is another loose end he must soon eliminate. Inside a high-end restaurant, Seo Dojun sips coffee with the woman of the hour. Shuayan kindly unloaded gifts for little Yunyong, grandma, and even him. She warned him not to check the contents yet, saying it would be better to open them at home. Ignoring her, Dojun found some fine clothes in his pile of gifts. Juayan simply wanted to offer him a token of thanks for the invaluable tip. Thanks to Dojun's casual intel, she experienced a manhwa level up, becoming the world's most acclaimed hero. Compared to her gains, some nice clothes were practically nothing. So, she promised to buy Dojun a car, or anything he wanted. The man secured a powerful benefactor. She already knew Dojun wouldn't reveal how he knew the Macassian's weakness, but she asked anyway. As expected, the man was impossible to read. Changing the subject, Shuyan asked about his future plans. He isn't one for grand speeches, but if he targets Hong Haiju and Kang Yongpo, things would get bloody. To Juan's surprise, Dojun's only immediate plan was buying a new house. The safe house his family currently occupied was just a rental. While the star hero and former sword god reconnected, the other hero who stood out from the UK mission was living large. Kang Yongpo reveled in his welcome party, surrounded by endless admirers. Lost in the crowd, the fool couldn't take his mind off Juyeon. He knew she wasn't this formidable before. Something had changed. He found it suspicious that she was hiding how she discovered the creature's weakness. On the flight to Korea, Yongpo had tried to provoke her for information about Seo Dojun. He mentioned Juyeon saving the day when Dojun clashed with a corrupt prosecutor. She was also there when Kang Chiolu was torn apart. Knowing he was provoking her, Juan asserted that Chiolu, the idiot, had started the fight. Before that, he had attempted to murder Dojun, and failed. Kang Yongpo's mouth twisted into a demented smile as he agreed. He also blamed the fool for being blinded by petty cash. Even so, Chiolu was his dear cousin. He could always use their bond as a pretext for revenge against that Seo Dojun. For a split second, Chuyan nearly betrayed her emotions under the shrewd bastard's scrutiny. She immediately distanced herself from him. She drew a line in the face of conflict, insisting she couldn't interfere if blood was spilled. Kang Yongpo was stunned. He'd fatally misjudged their bond. Dojun guy, ignoring him for the rest of the flight. Jian put her sleep mask back on, feigning sleep. Still, after their conversation, Yongpo couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't being entirely truthful. Kang Yongpo's paranoia kept him on high alert regarding Seo Dojun. Meanwhile, in England, the original breakout site in Long Sutton was a ruin. The damage from the monster wave was still starkly apparent. The British Hero Association deployed its scarce forces into the rift, hoping to secure magic stones before the second wave erupted. Some guards outside discussed how they could have become rankers if they had only known Macassians could be taken down with just a bit of red flower ant sap. If they had blocked the wave early, they could have farmed ungodly amounts of magic stones. You see, once a rift breaks, it can never become a gate. For the second wave, it was highly likely that a different kind of monster would pour out. Records tell of entire nations being wiped out by second waves. The unknown factor was the worst part. Suddenly, the rift throbbed violently. The raid team had entered not long ago to harvest stones. It had only been 5 hours, far too early to pull out. Even so, the D-rank guards tightened their watch, as desperate civilians stealing stones were a common sight. Instead of the usual team emerging, the entire rift seemed to shatter. It wasn't the mining team. Something, or someone, else came out. His humanoid face was scarred. His armor looked utterly out of this world. This man was definitely not a hero. His outfit and scars looked impossibly real. Before the guards could contact headquarters, they lost control of their bodies, floating helplessly. The man took a single step, seemingly teleporting while effortlessly lifting them. British Guard Number 1 fought back, using the UK's signature weapon, 3 knives. The blades flew true, but multiple circular green lights made them vanish as if they never existed. With a hoarse voice, the man complained that these guards were far too weak. He clenched his fist, and the green lights moved. As a result, the guards were brutally torn apart, their limbs severed in an instant. They were turned into grotesque puppets on the job. A dark miasma flowed from the man's body. Using this dark energy, he dominated the space around him and seized a guard's smartphone. He checked the date and calculated that it had been 10 years since he last set foot on Earth. And yet, his mission hadn't even reached 20% completion. After all, his effort to open dimensional rifts, was it finally time to admit failure? No, he just needed to increase the mana concentration. But before that, this planet was due for a thorough cleansing. It was time to weed out the weaklings. Back in South Korea, in the Poo region, a young man was venturing into one of his routine farming runs, oblivious to the global threat. Carrying nothing but a backpack, So Dojan walked through the restricted area. Suddenly, his senses flared, noticing abnormal vibrations in the ground. As he expected, a battalion of disgusting worm monsters surfaced, eager for flesh. Their bodies bristled with metallic spikes, their maws layered with sharp fangs. Dojan stood in the middle of the swarm, completely calm and unperturbed by the display of power. He ignored the monsters, turning his attention downwards to the holes the worms had made. He glanced, estimating about 26 worms were underground within a 100-meter radius. A twisted smile formed as he gathered mana. For him, this wasn't a fight. It was just another Manhwa level up. He sent a concentrated mana blast down one hole, and an eerie silence followed. After a few seconds of idle waiting, the much-awaited explosions chained through every other burrow in the area. Debris and fire erupted, forcing every last wriggling worm upwards to escape being cooked alive. Dojan was a proponent of working smarter, not harder. With this technique, he didn't even have to get his hands dirty. While he farmed essence stones from grotesque worms, a meeting of grave consequence was unfolding in the city. Minhoni, the Korea Hero Association's deputy director, and his superior, Na Tai-wong, discussed a young man proving impossible to manage. They were, of course, referring to So Dojan. According to the reports, his strength couldn't even be measured by a standard hero meter. Other association executives, specifically Vice President Park Seong-gul, found it absurd and threatening to have such a presence roaming free. They demanded So Dojan answer to the association. According to the deputy's intel, So Dojan's strange transformation began with Kang Chao-woo's twisted plan. After reawakening in the gate raid where he was meant to die, Dojan changed drastically. He later exacted his revenge and handled the Mapo rift alone. True, he showed some excessive force at times, but he always had a valid reason. All in all, So Dojan's power was simply an overwhelming force. Na Tai-wong mused that a wild stallion is hardest to tame. Still, they had a powerful horse in their stable, and that's what mattered. What spurred this discussion was Dojan's request for an official hero license. He was granted the special privilege to bypass standard procedure since he had a guarantor. That backer, of course, was the nation's S-rank darling, Hun Hwan. Upon hearing his connection with the Golden Girl, the old guard of the association was stunned. Knowing they couldn't afford to offend Hwan, given her current renown, So Dojan's request for a hero license was smoothly granted and fast-tracked. He was slotted in as South Korea's 8th S-rank hero, having never even set foot in the association. With his new status, he could finally hunt in any rift zone he desired. It wasn't a bad perk to have. The way he wreaked havoc in the Poo rift zone, burning worms to a crisp, quickly reached the director's ears. That intimidating old man was amused that the nation's newest S-ranker was already embodying the title. It's not every day one hears of a hero entering a secondary rift alone, with no guild or allies for support. To normal people, it was pure insanity. The vice president, who was the one so vehemently opposed to So Dojan, was now advocating to reveal his identity to the public, to promote a new rising star. Thankfully, the deputy shot down such a foolish and greedy idea. Minhoni asserted they should ask the man's opinion first before exposing him to life as a public figure. The VP argued that, in this era of unrest, giving people another symbol of hope in the form of a new S-rank hero would ease public anxiety. The VP tried his best to sell the idea to director Na Tai-wong, but the old man chose to be prudent. Before the association made any move, he wanted to meet the boy face to face. Speaking of the devil, So Dojan was still deep in his worm-slaying marathon. If not using mana explosions, he used pure brute force. As he sliced through one worm, the rest of the writhing abominations loomed over him. A tough fight for normal heroes, but their moves were telegraphed in Dojan's mind. With his hand enhanced by the burning power of his mana, he unleashed a wide sweep that incinerated and decapitated a dozen worms at once. He landed back on the ground, and dozens of carcasses dropped around his feet. Dojan stood atop the mountain of corpses, farming aura like a god. His hands were still scorching from his technique's afterburn. He sighed, waving the last flickers away. As expected, the mana cost of continuously hunting high-level monsters was no joke. To solve that problem, So Dojan finally decided to get a proper weapon. As expected, the best place for equipment was the Gasan Hero Complex. So Dojan picked an unassuming store and entered. Inside, A bruised-up man was manning the counter, playing on his phone out of boredom. The welcome bell rang, but he didn't look up, asking if the customer had a reservation. Seo Dojun ignored the man's question, dumping his backpack on the counter and demanding a weapon crafted from its contents. Inside, a punk sneered, claiming no service without a reservation. Dojan had been denied by every other forge on this damned strip. They all cited being fully booked. This was the only shop that even answered his call. Still, the brat blatantly refused to see Dojan. He was infuriated at having to look up from his phone. With patience worn to a thread, Dojan grabbed the punk by the collar. Ignoring the threats and curses, he asked the little brat who the shop's owner was. The punk proudly declared his father owned the business. If that's the case, he'd better call his daddy immediately. Seo Dojan came here specifically because of a trusted recommendation. The punk was released. He scoffed but cowardly scurried to another room to call his father. An old man in a modified welding mask emerged from the workshop to see the commotion. His name is Cho Chelan, master craftsman of Hero Armaments. Dojan stated he was here on Hunu Yan's recommendation. Of course, both father and son recognized that name. The whole country knew it. Old man Choi was just stunned that an S-rank celebrity knew of his small craft. Seo Dojan had no time for useless chatter, pulling the materials from his bag. The old master gave them a thorough inspection and identified them as a giant black viper's fang. It had been a long time since he'd seen one. Well, Seo Dojan wanted a proper sword from this. He demanded his weapon be forged as long as physically possible. The master craftsman immediately argued against the request. Stretching non-metal materials so far would severely compromise their durability. It'd be more effective to forge 2 medium-sized swords instead. Hearing that weak compromise, Dojan asked if the old man was admitting his skills were too subpar to craft what a customer wanted. Regardless, he doesn't want 2 swords. He wants them fused into one. All that mattered to him was length. And, of course, how you use it. Besides absurd length, he wanted the mana absorption rate cranked to its absolute maximum. Hearing the endless, unreasonable requests, the punk couldn't just stand by any longer. He boasted of his dad, a man who could craft weapons with a grade 3 mana absorption rate. Seo Dojan responded by grabbing a sword displayed at the shop's forefront. He gave the blade a quick once-over, evaluating the material as grade 5. Then he gripped the sharpened edge of the sword with his bare hand. Both father and son stood in silent shock as their customer performed a miracle. The grip tightened, a true Manhwa level-up display, until the grade 5 material shattered from sheer force. This product, which the shop proudly displayed, was reduced to nothing but sharp dust and debris. The punk thanked his lucky stars. He didn't provoke the terrifying customer. The old man watched his own creation disintegrate. Seo Dojan warned Cho Chelan if he planned to craft garbage, he'd better drop the job now. If these hands can turn a grade 5 weapon to dust, imagine what they could do to a face. After finally securing a forge to accommodate his demands, Seo Dojun immediately set out for another dungeon. Today's target, a green-skinned, one-eyed freak of nature. With its sharp senses, the Cyclops shrieked, feeling a hostile presence nearby. While other hunters wear flashy gear, Seo Dojan solo hunts in his jeans and hoodie. Since he lacks a proper weapon, these hands will have to do for now. The Cyclops gave him no free hits, trying to stomp him out from the start. When its initial attack missed, the one-eyed beast fell into a panic. Dojan launched himself into the air, closing the gap in size. His sword hand struck like lightning, carving off a chunk of the Cyclops' shoulder meat. The pain made the beast screech in a higher, agonizing pitch. Desperate to strike back, it used its monstrous strength and massive size to uproot an entire tree. He swung it around like a club, desperate to swat the hooded menace down. Unfortunately for the Cyclops, such wild tactics were useless against this man. He braced, and 2 more deep, brutal wounds tore open on its shoulders. It was a bloodbath. Normally, this would be the end of the hunt for any other monster, but Cyclopes are a special breed. Their regenerative abilities are so potent they can mock fatal wounds. Dojan had already factored in this obscene power. If an enemy has insane healing, you just inflict relentless damage. Denying the Cyclops any chance to recover, Dojan carved, sliced, and tore through its tough flesh and grotesque innards. To conclude the affair, he severed the giant monster's head and stuck his landing, a clean, yet bloody victory over the green-skinned behemoth. Seo Dojun sighed in slight exhaustion. Maintaining a mana sword for long periods is still far too demanding and inefficient. He grabbed his bag and pulled out a pitcher. Dojun then dipped it into a grotesque wound on the Cyclops as if collecting juice. This was the true purpose of today's hunt, to acquire some of that potent Cyclops blood. He returned to the hero district by sundown. The usual bum was manning the counter, so he wordlessly placed the blood pitcher down, instructing the boy to give it to his father. With this, the 2 black viper fangs could finally be fused. After that brief explanation, he refused to elaborate and left the shop. All the basic weapon materials were gathered, but for a higher mana absorption rate, he needed one last ingredient. And there's only one place on Earth to acquire it. While he plotted a way to find that secret component, his fellow S-ranker was receiving a critical call. Hihojina was on a relaxing vacation when she took the call and heard a single country mentioned. Brazil. The sun was perfect, the water just right, but Hyo couldn't fully enjoy her break because of that call. After their recent European mission, the Korean Association was sending its heroes to Brazil. This meant the Brazilian government and its association had surrendered on closing the rift zones themselves. As far as Gina knew, Brazilian monsters are exceptionally violent, but their magic stone drop rates are unnaturally high. With serious money at stake, her Clio guild was slated to go. She urged Gina to accept the mission with the friend she was with a few days ago. Inju reckoned the country's 8th S-ranker must be that man they entered the dungeon with, the one rumored to be Gina's man. Inju fully supported this budding romance. She found it romantic that two supremely powerful hunters took down a fearsome Carcelian alone. After much goading, Inju finally got Gina to agree to the Brazil mission. However, she had no idea if that man would even return to the small shop in the Gasan Hero complex. Old Man Choi looked at his own creation in awe. He never imagined non-metallic materials could be melted and fused using Cyclops blood. If not for this young man, he never would have encountered such a bizarre technique. With this, he could make the sword as long as Dojan required. They could push the upper limit to 180 centimeters. Seo Dojun wanted a two-handed blade with an adjustable grip for one-handed swings, weighing about 5 kilograms. Old Man Choi was surprised. The rude kid from yesterday was speaking so politely. He actually possessed basic manners. Perhaps his weapon was just that important to him. Old Man Choi warned that 5 kilograms would be heavy for one-handed swings. It's not like he'd swing it only once or twice. Dojan knew the exact specs he wanted and refused to budge. Old Man Choi estimated the crafting would take at least a month, and the mana absorption rate should reach grade 7. He was unsatisfied with a mere grade 7 rate. This wasn't some simple Manhwa level up. His power demanded more. As expected, he truly needed the final push from that one specific ingredient. Dojan headed for the door, tasking the old man to just finish the shape for now. The mana absorption upgrade could wait until he had the final materials. As an experienced artisan, Old Man Choi had an idea of what material the boy was referring to, and he couldn't help but shudder. A few days later, Seo Dojun went to the city to meet a very important woman, Hyo Gina. Gina fulfilled her promise and got him a new car, a gift Dojan greatly appreciated. She assured him it was nothing. Their journey is only just beginning, and if you want to see where it leads, consider subscribing and share your thoughts in the comments. For a man marked for death, a $1 billion car is a hollow trophy. His simple thanks for the gift made the nation's hero blush. But as he admired his new ride, a darker conversation began. His showdown with the Hero Association's top brass, a meeting shrouded in conspiracy. The old guard proposed making his info public, but Dojan demanded a king's ransom for it. He acknowledged that President Na Wang aims for the greater good, but politics poisons the well. In the end, the deal collapsed. His inspection complete, Dojan slid into his new car. Jian quietly slipped into the passenger seat. While buckling up, she mentioned the association's preparations for the impending Brazil operation. The word Brazil silenced everything else for Dojan. He leaned in, earnestly asking if she was also going. Stunned, she barely stammered out a yes. Hearing that, he invited Jian to go with him. The sudden invitation made the nation's hero's heart skip a beat, her cheeks flushing an uncontrollable crimson. Meanwhile, another woman was seeing red, all because of Seo Dojan. The venomous heiress, Hong Heju, was being fleeced by Kang Yong-pyo for yet more cash. He warned Director Hong not to pinch pennies now. He already had a $3 billion advance, yet he craved more. The man hadn't even begun his one job, to finally eliminate Seo Dojan. Her patience worn thin, Hong Heju seriously considered hiring someone else to do her dirty work. She figured there was plenty of scum out there who would kill for a mountain of cash, no questions asked. Kang Yong-pyo just mocked her outdated intel, offering a free tip. He just learned that Dojan was now the nation's newest S-ranker, practically his peer. Director Hong refused to believe the weakling she'd cast out had achieved some kind of real-life Manhwa level up, turning into a monster. Yong-pyo spent a fortune of his own to confirm this intel. If she refused to believe it, she could just wait for Dojan to climb the tower and handle business himself. Gripped by desperation and fear of retribution, Director Hong stopped Yong-pyo from leaving. She was in over her head and terrified of dying. The desperate woman swore to pay any price to remove Seo Dojan from the picture. Kang Yong-pyo smirked, replying that he'd had a change of heart. Instead of more cash, he now wanted a significant stake in the director's conglomerate. At this point, Hong Heju would have sold her soul. Just then, he received a fateful text message. It seemed the heavens were smiling on the damned woman. The perfect opportunity to eliminate Dojan had just appeared. Days later, the nation buzzed with news of another international expedition for its heroes. The S-rankers who accepted the mission were now aboard a lavish private jet. On social media, fans were hyped to watch 5 S-ranks save a nation on the verge of collapse. Korean users were swelling with pride. Among them was Jang Sunung-ho, who single-handedly built the P Group into an empire. He only accepts missions with a mountain of cash on the line. Then there's Park Hale. His guild had recently crumbled to dust, so this expedition's cash reward was desperately needed. Jian, however, is the nation's reigning hero. She just saved Britain, and is now heading to Brazil without a moment's rest. Kang Yongpyo must be joining after hearing about the tax exemption on every magic stone recovered. A single mid to high-grade stone could change an ordinary person's entire life. While other S-rankers earned praise online, one figure sparked more questions than rumors. Seo Dojan was viewed as a fresh-faced rookie making his international debut. Nothing special. With these 5 apex predators on the move, things in Brazil were about to get bloody. After a long, quiet flight, the team finally touched down in São Paulo, Brazil. The Brazilian Hero Association convened to strategize their next move. They were eager to welcome the famed Korean expedition team, the fastest to respond out of all the nations they had petitioned for aid. A few S-rankers bypassed their hotels, diving headfirst into the fray. Still, the top brass remained on edge, worried that the Koreans were walking into a trap. They might uncover a truth meant to be buried. No secret lasts forever, so they must ensure everything remains tightly controlled until this mission ends. Brazil's national hero, Maurice, was annihilated by an unknown entity. It was a savage end. He wasn't slain by a monster. His black box captured the unmistakable silhouette of a human killer. What transpired near the Sanram Rift remains a mystery. The Korean team is now receiving its mission briefing. While the others listened, Hun Juan was preoccupied, texting, searching for Seo Dojun. He had remained on the plane, catching a connecting flight to a distant location. He was heading directly for the Santa Rift. Xuan was deeply concerned. This man was walking into the most notorious rift alone. The team was supposed to have a 2-day adaptation period before being assigned to their requested rift zones. After the briefing, Xuan immediately left and hailed a taxi. Kang Yongpyo trailed her, demanding to know where she was going against orders. To shake his persistent questions, she revealed she was heading to Sanrem. Yongo immediately found that suspicious. The Brazilian Association had warned them about the extreme dangers there. The Sanrem Rift Zone was now a desolate wasteland. Hyunju Yan and the Clio Guild met with Seo Dojun, intending to tag along on his solo mission. Having rushed to this forsaken place, Xuan demanded to know why he was in such a hurry. Dojun retorted that they were the ones who were late. They argued like a seasoned couple. Worn down by her questions, Dojun finally admitted he was hunting the Blue Croco. It was a disappointingly simple answer. Annoyed by his casual tone, Xuan insisted she was 3 years his senior and demanded respect. As they bickered, the Clio Guild watched from a distance. Guild leader Zhang and Zhu had never seen anyone dare to order Juan around. Deeper in the Rift Zone, some Clio Guild members grew hesitant to proceed without a clear plan. But Zhuan's presence assured them of their safety. Her skill was undeniable, but it seemed the newcomer was leading the charge. While some doubted the man, those from the previous dungeon run were confident in his leadership. Confused and worried, Juan asked if Dojun planned to close the rift. He denied having such a grand objective. He was simply here for materials, to strip this zone bare. After a few more minutes of tense trekking, they finally encountered their first obstacle. The Clio Guild, full of talented A-rankers, expertly assumed their respective roles. Their clear hierarchy and concise calls handled unexpected threats. Yet, the Blue Crocos blocking their path were more monstrous in person than any photo suggested. They were forced onto the defensive, and the situation grew perilous. With the group stalled, Seo Dojun finally made his move, drawing his blade and ordering the A-rankers aside. With all eyes on him, he didn't miss his chance to farm their aura. Old Man Choi, knowing he aimed for the Blue Croco's heart, lent Dojun a prized sword. He locked his gaze on the target and shot forward like a cannonball. In one fluid motion, he turned the massive Blue Crocos into mince. His movements were so impossibly fast that he triggered a classic afterimage effect. Dojun was already yards past the beasts as they collapsed. Those who had believed in the newcomer from the start felt vindicated, while the doubters were stunned silent. It was like watching a real-life Manhwa level up, a display of insane power. After that first bloody encounter, the journey continued smoothly. As night fell, the party made camp. Gathered by the fire, the Clio Guild couldn't stop talking about how Seo Dojun eliminated a pack of Blue Crocos in a single attack. He hadn't even broken a sweat. It was still unknown to the public, but that was how he defeated the dreaded Carcelian. One thing was certain, this man was no ordinary hero. While the others talked, Dojun was busy, watching the sickly flesh of his kill cook. Hyan approached and asked if he'd finished sorting the Blue Croco hearts. The coolers he brought were full. With him were now filled with that stuff. Jian still couldn't fathom what those hearts were good for. Turning to his pan, she asked what kind of meat was sizzling in there. It was certainly not beef. He casually replied he was grilling Blue Croco meat, offering her a taste if she dared. They had plenty of provisions for this expedition, yet this man cooked his own kill. Ignoring her disgusted look, Dojun bit into his grotesque meal. He chewed and swallowed as if dining at a fine restaurant. Using his knife as a fork, it was a truly grisly sight. Even Jong Eun-ju was weirded out. They had so much normal food, yet their leader devoured cursed meat. Overcoming her initial disgust, Jian grew curious. She picked up a piece for herself, staring at it for a moment. Inju tried to stop her friend from making a mistake, but Jian trusted Dojun's judgment. As the blue meat neared her lips, Inju could only watch in horror. Jian gently bit into the rancid-looking flesh. After a small bite, she was stunned by its delicious flavor. And so, two people in the camp silently savored a bizarre meal. Curious, Jong Eunju whispered, asking So Dojun his secret. How could a relative unknown charm someone like Miss Jian? Sure, she is inexperienced, never having had a boyfriend, but she's not one to easily fall for a man. So what was Dojun's secret to charming and romancing? Korea's national treasure into trying his kill? The mention of romance sent his mind back to the Imperial Academy. It was long ago, before he had even turned 20. Regarding romance, there was Miss Massel Grain of the Grain Count family, and the youngest of the Lazulian family, Luenda Lulian, and of course, his final bastion in a destroyed world, the knight Veronica. He got lost, reminiscing about the past, and was jolted back to reality by Inju's whispered shout. As for his secret, he answered that Jian is the moth to his flame. Inju had never heard anything more cringeworthy in her life. And so, the night passed in a playful atmosphere. Even Dojun was smiling, enjoying himself. Back in Sao Paulo, Kang Yongpyo was living lavishly in a grand hotel suite. He wondered why Jian was in such a rush when the proper operation date hadn't been set. His sources confirmed she was moving with Seo Dojun and Jong-eun's guild. He turned to his assistant, asking about the range of profitable monsters in the Santa region. As far as he knew, none were considered particularly lucrative. Every single thing about that bastard Seo Dojun was just too unpredictable. Yongpyo's worries vanished when the hateful director Hong called. As always, she was calling to ask if the job was done. Hearing her impatience, Kang Yongpyo probed if something had happened on her end. Apparently, she's worried her father discovered the news of Dojun's ascent to S-Rank. He was telling the boy to come home. Now that the T-group chairman was getting involved, Hong Heju grew even more anxious. Yongpyo found her suffering amusing. Still, he'd finally found a partner who would net him immense profits. He would ensure she wasn't disappointed. He assured the conniving director that Seo Dojun would not return to Korea. Hearing this gave Hong Heju some small measure of relief. Kang Yongpyo marked a spot on his map, preparing to contact someone named Takeshi. Now that Seo Dojun had slunk off to an isolated place on his own, his work had become much easier. When the sun rose, the Santa expedition team continued their journey with Dojun at the helm. Jian held the map, warning Dojun about the monsters lurking within the jungle ahead. Chief among the threats to worry about was the lynx. Of course, Dojun knew everything about the lynx. Instead of avoiding the thick jungle, Seo Dojun immediately chose the most dangerous path available. Jian knew there was no stopping him once he had his eyes on a prize, but she insisted he at least use the earplugs. Thankfully, she had prepared them. They were essential when facing a lynx. Their cries possess a bewitching effect that can paralyze the mind. Dojan was aware, yet he refused the plugs. Juan did not easily give up trying to persuade him to take the earplugs. The intel, a warning from the Brazilian treasure hero, was being ignored. Ignoring her pleas, Dojan wordlessly and casually moved through the heavy thicket of Santa jungle, leaving them no other choice. Hun Juayan and the Cleom Guild were dragged into this treacherous detour. After a full day of relentless trekking, they finally reached the monster's lair. Under the cold moonlight, the lynx stared them down like a predator, sizing up its prey. It resembled a deranged, overgrown cat. The moment the beast revealed itself, Xuan ordered her subordinates to cover their ears. As everyone panicked, Dojan just stared back at the cat, unmoving. He was not prey. Two predators were sizing up each other. It was a contest of sheer aura. As expected, the lynx opened its ghastly maw and unleashed an ear-splitting cry. Hun Juayan and the Cleom Guild members frantically covered their ears while Dojan just stood there, taking the full force of the sound. Seeing his strange calm, Juan wondered why he wasn't employing the most basic defense against the lynx. Dojan lowered his hand and conjured a blazing ball of energy. With perfect precision, he hurled the projectile at the perched lynx, silhouetted against the moon. That attack certainly halted the screeching cries. Recognizing him as a threat, the beast bolted away in the blink of an eye. Dojan immediately unsheathed his blade and gave chase on foot. Jong-u, Juayan, and the rest recovered and followed suit, but it remained unclear what in the hell was happening. They tore through the depths of the woods before Dojan's strides came to a dead stop. The lynx that had greeted them was merely bait, luring unsuspecting victims to the pack's den. That first cat, hit by Dojan's attack, now looked absolutely furious. Suddenly, its eyes began to glow with a warm, radiant light. Its gaze scanned the group of humans and quickly locked onto its main target. Julian was chosen. Her eyes met the lynx's piercing glare. For an instant, she fell under the monster's spell. Thankfully, Dojan moved swiftly to cover her eyes. He then calmly explained that a lynx's cry wasn't the real death sentence. What truly paralyzes the mind of the prey are the monster's magical eyes. The solution was simple. Everyone just needed to close their eyes for a moment and let their leader do all the heavy lifting. Dojan confidently advanced with his sword in hand. It was time to test his current limits. With a crescent sweep, his energy manifested a burning arc, studded with lumps of power. A technique that can elevate a swordsman, the Vandan sword skill's first form, a miracle born from a single point. He extended his blade's tip forward and steadily summoned a far more condensed version of his energy blasts. The Lynx pack had never witnessed anything like this before. They didn't know how to react. As a result, our protagonist got a clean shot with his ultimate skill. The A-rankers of the Cleum Guild were awestruck and terrified, looking at a mad god. Seo Dojun released the stored energy from his tip, and the burning climax incinerated everything in its path. The poor creatures crawling on the branches realized they were royally screwed a moment too late. The pack took the full brunt of the miracle born from a single point. They were utterly obliterated. Its impact nearly swept the women off their feet, and not in a romantic way. When the spell's radiance faded, the aftermath revealed a ghastly sight. An entire section of the forest had been erased from existence. The land was scorched to a crisp, and the man responsible for it didn't even break a sweat. The unfortunate beasts who chose the wrong target were instantly incinerated. All that hype about their danger level, and they never even got to show their full strength. If Julian had to describe Seo Dojan, it was like a living ***Manhwa level up ***, truly unbelievable. Surprisingly, one single lynx survived the blast that had essentially annihilated its entire bloodline. Dojan doesn't leave loose ends, so he calmly strode forward to complete the job. In desperation, the survivor lynx frantically tried to paralyze its executioner with its signature skill. Dojan was unfazed, cutting its head from its body without mercy. It was a clean strike, marking the end of tonight's one-sided hunt, the last thing the beast saw with its fading eyes. Reflected in its dying eye was the face of its executioner. Dojan knelt, callously carving out the dead lynx's eye. A true hunter is not about to let such a valuable prize go to waste. After incinerating the beasts and harvesting their spoils, the group returned to a safer path with an even higher assessment of Sojan. Huiyan watched him with awestruck eyes from behind. Everyone was thinking the same thing. The man leading this expedition was clearly beyond the human level, like watching a manhwa level up in real time. Some would place him above the iconic hero, Shah Alan's. Others dared to rank Dojan on the same tier as Kane Lester, the world's current strongest hero. The journey back to the normal route, however, was not without obstacles. They had just entered the swampy area when ghoulish humanoid creatures emerged to block their path. These monsters completely lacked self-preservation. The undead, after all, have no brains. They are merely corpses animated by the sole purpose of devouring. Their charge looked intimidating, but it was far too predictable. A fist shot out, blasting a ghoul out of the way. Dojan resumed his kill streak after a brief pause. This time, it was by way of another headshot. He needed no weapon, no fancy technique. The undead could catch these hands and be sent back to the underworld. Once he found his rhythm, it was essentially over. A rapid succession of exploding heads echoed as the ghouls fell one by one. Using his bare hands, Sojan tore every single one of them to pieces. This time, the Clio Guild members accepted their role as spectators and watched the carnage. A few moments later, after looting what little they could salvage from the ghouls, the group continued their trek. While walking, Jian could no longer contain her curiosity, so she asked Dojun about his swordsmanship, specifically the move that produced the radiant flashes. She was obviously referring to the Vanian sword skills. First form, a miracle born from a single point. He casually asked if she wanted to learn, and Jian's face immediately lit up. But in a world this peaceful, he saw no reason to teach someone a technique so overpowered. Julian sensed that this man was severely underestimating her. She's still an S-rank hero too. On paper, they were on the same tier. Seeing the defiant look in her eyes, Dojan actually considered teaching her the Van Dion swordplay. In the end, she accepted this brick wall wouldn't budge and sulked like a child denied a toy. To keep everyone on track, Inju made the call to leave the rift for now. The final leg of the journey back was uneventful, and the group reached the exit portal. Thanks to Dojan's hard carry, they cleared the zone without a single casualty or injury. Next time, they would re-enter with the goal of shutting the rift down for good. Who knows, maybe that attempt would be even quicker. Everyone exited the rift one by one, with Inju stepping out on the other side last. Immediately, she heard a heated argument in Japanese. Someone had been camping the portal, looking to cause trouble. The more Inju listened, the more she recognized the abrasive voice. In the middle of the scuffle, Seo Dojun inexplicably had his arm around Jian's waist. Before them stood Ryoma Takashi, an ex-Yakuza S-rank hero and Toku's guildmaster. He had his crew with him. According to Ryoma, he was supposed to spend the day with Jian, but this unknown punk dared to block his way. He threatened to smash Dojan's face in if he didn't get the hell out of the way. Ryoma towered over him, but Dojan looked completely unbothered by the threats. He even talked back in perfect Japanese. The previous Sojun must have studied the language before. Ryoma did not appreciate being disrespected in his own tongue. Sensing their boss's rage, the Yakuza goons barked at Dojun to bow his head and apologize sincerely. They kept insisting that their master was not to be trifled with. While they could yap all day, Seo Dojun couldn't care less. To put it plainly, he firmly told Ryoma to get lost. Watching the situation unfold, Inju's anxiety grew. Toku is ranked among Japan's top 5 guilds, and Ryoma Takashi is a thug infamous for his violent temper. Even for Dojan, It might be better to steer clear of this mess. Trying to broker peace between the two heated parties, she decided to step in, to intervene and de-escalate the situation. Inju's approach was calm and respectful, but Ryoma just called her a wench who should stay out of it. At this, her crew flared up. Their guild master was being openly disrespected. It could have easily become a guild war, but Inju kept her men under control. Despite the insult, Inju formally introduced herself as Cleum's guildmaster, and proposed they settle the dispute without escalation. Ryoma just spat on her peace offer. He had never heard of the insignificant Korean guild, so why should he care? Going further, Ryoma then offered to give Inju a turn with his prized asset after he was done with Jian. He then moved to forcefully grab Jian, but Dojan's body blocked the attempt. Irritated, Ryoma finally acted on his threats. His fist gave Dojan's cheek a light tap. He thought that would be enough to knock some nobody out, so he could have his fun. The arrogant Yakuza also let slip he had business to settle with Dojan. One can infer that this stunt was one big, calculated provocation. If so, Dojan was more than willing to play along. He immediately paid Ryoma back, striking the same cheek. His punch was noticeably more effective. It sent the Japanese punk flying back to his crew. The devout Yakuza followers who were barking obscenities never expected to see their boss in this state. Dojan advised everyone to stand back. Since these thugs struck first, whatever happened next could be reported as self-defense. The Yakuza goons drew their weapons and prepared to retaliate, but their boss called for a one-on-one. Ryoma discarded the jacket covering his sculpted physique and ordered his men to fall back, awakening the dormant power within his body. The former Yakuza S-ranker showed why he was one of Japan's best. Before the inevitable fight began, Jian turned to Dojan with advice. She did not bother talking him down or any of that nonsense. She just asked her man to at least leave the Japanese gangster half alive. What followed was predictable. To the men from Japan, it was a shock. To the expedition group, it was the norm. Dojan was absolutely demolishing the trash-talking Yakuza. Ryoma had his head ground into the dirt, while the heel of Dojan's shoe bashed it deeper with every stomp. Miraculously, Ryoma managed to escape the humiliating position by scrambling away. He crawled backward to his men while trying to reevaluate his life choices. Who the hell did he provoke? How could he be human? This wasn't what the source had told him. Look at those eyes. Seo Dojan is not a man to be trifled with. Staring into them felt like a death sentence. Every fiber of Ryoma's being screamed at him to run, or he was going to die for certain. It didn't matter if it was shameful to run after starting the fight. He just wanted to escape and never see Dojan again. Unfortunately, he had to finish it. The young man moved like the wind and appeared in his escape path. Looking down on the broken gangster, Dojan asked if this stunt was orchestrated. He already had a good idea who was behind these dirty tactics. There was no point in denying it. Dojan grabbed Ryoma by his greasy hair, and the hardened Yakuza begged to be spared. From talking trash to begging for his life, the gangster's tone had shifted drastically. Dojan was disgusted by the lack of spine and pelted the man with 100 slaps in a few seconds. Halfway through the assault, he closed his fist to deal some real damage. Seo Dojan proceeded to beat the gangster's ugly face to a bloody pulp. He pounded that wretched man into the ground. The bystanders were frozen in shock and terror. It's not every day you see an S-ranker get brutalized like some high school bully. After countless punches, he let Ryoma's limp body fall. Inju expected her man would win, but this was more one-sided and graphic than she imagined. After a brief pause, Dojan was back on him, inflicting more trauma. He carefully placed his heel on the back of Ryoma's head. With everyone watching, he slowly increased the pressure, silently threatening to crush the man's skull. At this rate, one of Japan's valuable S-rankers might actually die here. Inju urged Jian to say something. She snapped out of her daze and pleaded for Dojan to stop, before they crossed a line that should never be crossed. In response, he calmly stated he would take responsibility. Jian had had enough of his dark intensity and pulled the boy from needless trouble. He shouldn't create situations he'd need to be responsible for in the first place. Still, Dojan had seen his share of scum like Ryoma. He found it's better to just eliminate those types instead of leaving loose ends. But this is the modern world. Inju and Jian don't want him soiling his hands with such trash. To convince Dojan, the Yakuza learned their lesson. Inju ordered the goons to surrender and stay away unless they wanted their boss's fate. These thugs immediately dropped to their knees and swore never to interfere with Dojan again. But Dojan is a hard man to satisfy. He isn't pleased by simple kneeling. He wants the heads of his enemies on the ground, begging for their pathetic little lives. Knowing this kid could one-shot 3 of them, the goons complied quite convincingly. Dojan then mentioned that Yakuza members must cut off their fingers when they fail. Afraid of losing their pinkies, the goons slammed their foreheads against the floor even harder, pleading for forgiveness. So Dojan offered an out. All they have to do is say, "I'm a worthless dog, and I'm sorry," to get off with a warning. Through gritted teeth, the gangsters swallowed their pride to survive. They repeated the magic phrase word for word. The Clio Guild spectators felt a grim satisfaction at how Dojan handled the threat. Even the beaten S-ranker had to speak the humiliating phrase. After settling the conflict, they wrapped things up and returned to the coalition's headquarters. The next day, in sunny Sao Paulo, Brazil, Dojan, and Inju were in the office of Brazil's Hero Association to report on the previous day's events. Reading the events that transpired on paper was somewhat hard to believe. The report detailed how an S-rank hero like Ryoma Takashi was beaten to the point of being crippled by a single man. Despite many eyewitnesses, it was still difficult to accept. Brazil's Hero Association was hoping that Korea and Japan would cooperate closely in the quest to seal the dangerous San rift. If the report was accurate, the Brazilian association wouldn't need to get involved. They would just pass the case to the Hero Associations of Japan and Korea for their own internal decision. With that settled, they moved to the part of the report about the group's trip near San. For now, everything appeared to be normal. The Brazilian Hero Association's representative saw CEO Dojan's name all over the reports, so he asked to see the man, but that was impossible right now, as Dojan was left to allegedly tie up some loose ends. Inside a desolate hospital room, a patient covered in gauze, his face a mangled mess, was barely recognizable. He opened his eyes to a true nightmare. Dojan had arrived to pay his victim a proper visit, flowers in hand. Before Ryoma could even scream, the executioner ordered him still, claiming he was there for an official hospital visit. He then reached into the flower bouquet and pulled out the eye of the lynx stashed inside. Dojan forced Ryoma into an intense, one-sided staring contest. With the gangster completely under the lynx's bewitching power, it was time to extract information on the man who orchestrated the provocation. Dojan remained in that hospital room, interrogating his victim for a long time. By the time he was done, the infamous Ryoma Takashi was reduced to a babbling fool with a shattered mind. He kept calling himself lowly trash who caused trouble for the Korean guilds. His mind was utterly broken, and the loose end was tied. When Dojan walked out of the room, Ryoma was a shell of a man. He kept chanting that the Yakuza are dogs. Knowing how to dispose of lingering enemies is the next stage of a true protagonist's journey. Rumors of the clash between the Korean and Japanese heroes quickly leaked, spreading rapidly through every major news publication. Some articles detailed the brutal beating, while most were desperate to get the rising star's official statement. Korea's Hero Association president, Na Tae-yong, felt the public's excitement. He knew his new guy was creating an explosive news cycle, and the story is far from over. The airwaves were saturated with reports on Seo Dojan. Word also reached the association. Japan's Hero Association had abruptly dropped its investigation. Ryoma Takashi himself had petitioned his government to stand down, an odd move for a man known as a hothead, one who never backs down from a fight. For an entire nation to retreat, something monumental must have occurred. What that was, Natang couldn't guess, yet the old man couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that with Dojan at the epicenter, the world's balance of power was already fracturing. Now, only a single day remained before the operation to seal the Brazilian rift zone would commence. The advanced Korean team had just completed their acclimatization to the treacherous area. Joint operation plans were exchanged, the strategy meticulously perfected by all. The other heroes, conscripted from across the globe, had also assembled. To foster cooperation, the Brazilian government hosted a pre-battle Eve festival. The undisputed star of the night was, of course, the media's enigmatic new darling, Seo Dojan. He donned a trench coat, amplifying his formidable aura in the banquet hall, filled with delicacies. Dojan navigated conversations with heroes from other nations with surprising ease. The news of his demolition of Ryoma Takashi had already spread worldwide. Naturally, everyone was hungry for the sordid details of the confrontation. Though everyone approached him about the incident, he answered without a hint of arrogance. Inju casually remarked how she and Julian felt like mere mortals beside him. This was the type of quip that normally would have drawn a reply, but the S-ranker remained silent, lost in thought, making her wonder about her sullen mood. Inju scanned the room, seeing a sharp-dressed Dojun with the world's elite, a stunningly gorgeous woman clinging to his arm. Shuyan's dark mood suddenly clicked. The woman was Gloria Tyler, an American S-ranker, voted the world's most beautiful hero. Connecting the dots, Inju slapped her friend's back, telling her to stop sulking, get up, and go talk to her man. Unsure how to act outside a rift, Juan approached him anyway, looking completely out of her element, self-consciously staring at the floor. Dojun saw the faint blush on her cheeks and couldn't suppress an amused smile. Gloria Tyler took the cue and departed, curiously calling him Carcel, his name from a past life. It seems he introduced himself as such to Gloria. Juan was clueless about Carcel, assuming it was just a Western name. In a sense, she wasn't wrong. It was a name he used before Dojan. With her limited information, she wondered if he'd lived abroad as a child, but that was impossible. She'd run a deep background check. Juan was clearly upset another woman knew that Dojun had a different name before she did. As they chatted, some parasite was hovering closely, inconspicuously clutching a drink. Kang Yong-pyo eavesdropped. He silently cursed his Japanese ally for failing to handle one man. At this rate, he'd have to intervene personally. As he seethed with the urge to tear Dojun apart, his sharp ears picked up Julian's whispered warning. She reminded her man that even with his strength, their enemies wouldn't play fair. Ryoma Takashi had close friends in his circle, and the most dangerous one was in this very hall. Dojun cut her off before she could name the obvious mastermind. He claimed he didn't need a name. It would be the same song, different singer. Just like Takashi, the mastermind was another dirty, arrogant, worthless clown. Men like that weren't worth his time. Dojan drove the point home, his gaze slowly shifting to the very target hovering behind them. Kang Young-pyo feigned ignorance, turning away, but he'd heard it all. This man was on the verge of losing control right there. The final touch to this masterful provocation was Dojun's faint smile, openly mocking Young. Pyo's ragebait succeeded. Youngpo is done sending goons. He's coming for Dojan himself. The festival's calm shattered the next night as the heroes deployed. Inju, her Juyeon guild, and Dojun stood before the rift. Assigned to their team, they were forced to pause. The Sandrum rift zone was darker, murkier, and more sinister than usual. Still, some of the grunts dismissed the ominous shift. With two S-rank heroes among them, they thought they could just charge in and close the damn thing. What could possibly go wrong? Apprehensively, Inju commanded them to move. On the sidelines, Dojun's eyes were grim as he stared into the overgrown rift. He could feel something coming. The women had no idea what he was hinting at, but his foreboding words unsettled them. It was faint, but the mana density in the area was rising at an abnormal rate. Inside the rift, floating in the air, some entity with long nails eyed a phone, its progress meter at around 23%. The holder figured 30% was just around the corner. By his count, that power level should be enough to crush the worthless insects calling themselves heroes, now crawling into his domain. As soon as they entered, an immense weight crushed down on them. Movement became a struggle. The thick, cloying air made it hard to breathe. All these signs pointed to a drastic change in mana quality. Right now, it was even denser than the Patasua forest. Jian had never seen Dojun this tense. She couldn't help but worry about today's mission. Nevertheless, they were committed to seeing this through to the end. As the capable leader she is, Inju kept her men in line and calmed their frayed nerves. She explained the unusual weight they felt was just a characteristic of this rift zone. With movement impaired, they couldn't afford to lower their guard. Knowing the two S-rankers were their best insurance policy, Inju asked them to focus on protecting the formation. Until they understood why the mana density had changed, this was the safest play. They both agreed. The objective was to close the rift, no matter what. The Cleon boys looked as if they would follow their leader to hell and back. As Dojun was entering the anomalous Santa Rift, another party had gathered at a rift zone near Manaus, Brazil's largest northern city. A joint team of French, Korean, and Brazilian heroes had been dispatched. They were being slaughtered. These guys were getting torn apart and devoured. This wasn't some simple **Manhwa level up *** scenario. These were killer bees. The overconfident foreign heroes thought this mission would be a cakewalk. Hell, these bees should have been easy kills for C-rank heroes, yet here they were, getting wrecked by gigantic insects. Even the A-rank heroes among them were dropping like flies. The killer bees had no regard for human life. Their name was not for show. What did they expect? The sole remaining hero threw a desperate punch, making full contact. It was useless. His body had become so damn heavy, he couldn't project his true power output. Normally, he could shred an entire colony of these things to pieces by himself. In this place, they weren't the clearing squad. They were merely helpless prey for the real hunters. It's hard to say how many of these so-called heroes would actually make it out alive. Back in Sandrum, Inju narrowly dodged a heavy axe slam from their first encounter. Standing before the squad was a battalion of black orcs. They were not ordinary black orcs either. Just like the killer bees, they were abnormally stronger than what their classification suggested. Even so, the Cleon boys pressed the attack, executing their combos. Unfortunately, landing an attack that deals no damage is not a winning strategy. Even with perfect teamwork, they couldn't breach the orcs' titanic defense. Caught off guard, the Cleon boys were nearly decimated by a massive axe swing. Jian had to intervene, dragging them to safety from the beasts. She also yelled at them for their reckless charge. Once the rookies were safe, Jian leaped back into the fray. The black orc swung to knock her from the air, but the S-ranker, she weaved through vicious attacks with lethal grace. After a blur of footwork, she turned the tables, launching her own offensive with a blistering roundhouse kick. With unnatural speed, the beast spun to shield its exposed head, but Juan's feint was utterly flawless. It worked. She bypassed its guard, her kick arching ever higher. From the apex, she plummeted with the force of a falling meteor. One black orc fell, and the others roared to avenge their kin. With a cunning maneuver, Juan then deceived the raging orc into dealing friendly fire damage with its heavy bone club. Realizing it struck its own kin, the orc paused, horrified. That opening, Juan, the opening to flash behind it with lightning speed. This time, no elaborate pattern was needed. All it took was a single, direct kick to the back of its skull. The Cleon boys watched, mesmerized. Because of the destructive force named Seo Dojan, they had nearly forgotten Juan was also an S-rank, a being far beyond mere mortals like them. Only one black orc remained. It tried to posture with a harsh war cry. Thankfully, a fist shattered its jaw, silencing it for good. Juan had her moment. Now Dojan was just cleaning up the remaining trash. Inju felt a wave of helplessness. They had barely entered the rift, yet the difficulty was already this staggering. Even with 2 S-rank hunters, clearing this place would be no simple task. After finishing the orcs, Dojan examined the corpses to investigate, and Julian followed. Her curiosity piqued. He indicated a faint black ripple enveloping the beast. It was nearly invisible to untrained eyes. But there, if you focus intently, Dojan was now certain this ripple was enhancing the monsters to an absurd degree. Its presence, its aura, and its very feel were consistent with dark mana. It was like some twisted Manhwa level up, a power that shouldn't exist in this world. He seemed unusually talkative as he explained what the black ripple meant for their mission. Deeper inside the Sanderm rift, the biome shifted, revealing a new class of monster. They appeared as amorphous blobs of goop, a vicious pack of swamp creatures. Against these slimy abominations, the Cleon boys rejoined the fray, eager to contribute. Their practiced rotations were fast and precise, but their damage was simply negligible. Perhaps another 2-man combo could finally break through. But cooperation alone wasn't enough. They immobilized one swamp monster, but couldn't land the final blow. They were accustomed to dealing with ordinary swamp ghouls. This was an entirely different breed. Left exposed, the boys were ensnared in petrifying sludge. The spearman recovered, but his shield-bearing partner absorbed the brunt of the attack. The blow was powerful enough to shred a high-class combat suit. Every single attack was lethal. Desperation, helplessness, and confusion clouded their minds as they struggled to resist. A single lapse in judgment meant certain death if you were not paying close attention to your surroundings. Thankfully, Guildmaster Inju was watching for any surprise attacks. With her men in peril, her combat instincts flared. Inju wielded her blade as an extension of her own body, proving she'd earned her rank through sheer strength. Still, a deep unease settled in. If these swamp ghouls were this powerful, the Volsera would be a nightmare. For a moment, she entertained a terrifying thought. What if every rift on Earth was undergoing this same dark transformation? Meanwhile, let's see what is happening in the other rift near Manus. Inside, the hunters were not so lucky. They had no S-ranks to carry them. The lone survivor of one team is now running for his life through the dark woods. Brazil's Arvado, Francis David, and countless others had already fallen. Those 2 men were supposedly invincible. They were S-rankers, and yet, they were annihilated by just a few Volsera ferocious, spider-like monsters. While effortlessly fighting the swamp ghouls, Julian and Dojan discussed the vicious beast awaiting them at the rift's end. Dojan clearly remembered that a Volsera infused with dark mana is exceptionally dangerous. If those spiders are infected by that same black aura, facing them will be a true nightmare. While lecturing on the final boss, Juan obliterated slimy monsters with his bare fists. Dojan, meanwhile, gave a crash course on a lethal concept, pouring highly concentrated mana directly into a monster's very core. Juan asked if he meant the blue bar from video games for casting magic. It was painfully clear a lecture would be useless here. In this world, the chasm between heroes and mortals was an absolute unknown. Their very capacity to house and wield mana. Cutting his lesson short, Dojan punched clean through a swamp ghoul's torso. He pondered the implications of a world without even the concept of mana. The planet's relative peace suddenly made a chilling kind of sense. At this rate, that peace was on the verge of shattering, but for now, he would simply tear his way out of this swampy hell with his own 2 hands. Dojan easily dispatched the largest swamp ghouls in the blink of an eye. The Cleon boys looked like war survivors. Their S-rank babysitters, conversely, looked untouched. Since they were now in the clear, Dojan offered a more digestible explanation for the black mana's properties. Simply put, the monsters in this rift are like athletes juiced on every performance-enhancing substance imaginable. He found humanity's ignorance of this simple concept both strange and deeply worrying. Leaving the ghoul territory behind, Dojan took command of navigation, steering the team away from the Valkyra's hunting grounds. They slowed their advance to a tense crawl. A few minutes later, Inju's signal brought the entire team to a dead stop. They had hit the grim jackpot, a Valkyra's larder, filled with feeding cocoons. Wrapped in the toughest silk, killer bees and black orcs were captured and stored for a later meal. It was certain the monster behind this ghastly scene was nearby. But according to their de facto leader, they'd just stumbled upon the real danger, not the beast itself. And it was a very good thing they did. His hand erupted with more of those fiery blasts. The targets were stationary, so his aim was terrifyingly impeccable. Each energy blob exploded, burning the cocoons and the deceased monsters trapped inside. Valkyra that have absorbed dark mana can reanimate their dead prey like puppets. Destroying them now was a critical investment for the final fight. Leaving them would have been a recipe for total disaster. With the secret weapon neutralized, all that was left was to take down the grotesque spider itself. The team just stared at him like he was a complete madman. Considering what they'd witnessed, it was a reasonable reaction. Inju and the others were amazed that even in this seemingly hopeless situation, he operated with absolute certainty. They were all blinded by his strength, but his overall skill set felt beyond human, like a real-life Manhwa level up Shuayan jokingly poked fun at his encyclopedic knowledge and machine-like decision-making. She coyly asked him if this was his second playthrough of life, or something of the sort. Hearing the question gave Dojan a genuine chuckle. For a fleeting moment, he fondly remembered who he used to be. Carcel's new round as Seo Dojun could truly be called a second life. Changing the subject, he asked Inju how far they were from the core. With the map locked in her mind, she estimated they were about halfway through the trek after crossing the next jungle. At their current pace, this would be a long grind, but Dojan claimed they could close the rift before the day was over. This insane idea might be possible for Dojan, but for the Cleon boys, a one-day boss rush was suicide. Most of them had already burned through their stamina fighting the swamp ghouls. If they couldn't continue, they could rest. Dojan couldn't afford to waste time. He would just handle the giant spider solo and return once the job was done. Without another word, he took off in a burst, carried by the wind. He left everyone behind without leaving any room for discussion. They had all been through hell, yet that man still had the fuel to tear through the woods like an unstoppable force of nature. As the backdrop of the woods blurred, his eyes darted constantly, picking up every detail that could lead him to the final fight. With his expert tracking skills and an instinct for the Valkyra's nest, he finally laid eyes upon his target. The Valkyra was a nasty, scaly, and vicious-looking beast, its abdomen coated with its hide like armor, and its limbs like blades. It was a true apex predator. All of that was irrelevant. Sei Dojun launched himself into the air, his hand on his hilt. His blade remained sheathed as he descended. The slaughter began with a flash, severing limbs scaled thicker than forged steel. Judging by the creature's unholy shriek, losing 3 legs at once was agonizing. Enraged, the Vulsera's maw gaped, spewing a torrent of sticky silk. It was a desperate, messy attack that missed its mark entirely. Dojan masterfully sidestepped the web's trajectory, a blur of motion across the cavern. He moved with inhuman speed. There was no need to prolong this. The power gap was a chasm. With a flurry of crisscrossing slashes, the grim spectacle concluded. Dojun carved the Vulsera into a dozen pieces, yet landed perfectly, already absorbing the residual aura. The monster that annihilated S-rankers in another rift was dismantled in mere seconds. He rose to his feet, exhaling a calm breath, and scanned his own form for any strain. Shockingly, his stamina was at its peak, untouched by any fatigue. This was undoubtedly a result of the dark mana absorbed through his cultivation technique. After harvesting the rift's strongest monster, Dojan strode back to camp as if he'd just taken a casual stroll. Jian and Inju didn't need to ask if he had succeeded. They knew. The man didn't even show a hint of exhaustion. His hoodie was soaked in viscera, but not a single drop was his. Sensing no other dangerous monsters nearby, this dark jungle would serve as their camp. As the fire crackled to life, the survivors finally sat down. Those who sustained injuries received treatment while the unscathed spoke in low tones. And then there was Sei Dojun, silently roasting monster flesh over the flames. One of the Cleon hunters, the spear user, watched him, curiosity overriding his fear as he approached the intimidating leader. With a respectful tone, he asked if he could try the meat. 2. Dojun had harvested more than enough, so sharing was a trivial matter. Seeing their comrade sitting and dining with Dojun, another Cleon hunter ventured closer. The spearman believed this meat was the secret to his overwhelming power. Since they had nothing left to lose, the others gathered, hoping for a peace. All eyes watched as they hesitantly took their first bite. Dojun was actually pleased by their ambition. It offered little more than sustenance, but he respected anyone who craved greater strength. As a small gift, he subtly infused their portions with his mana, a whim that offered a taste of a true Manhwa level up ***. The effect of this infusion was immediate and apparent. Naturally, they credited the warm, empowering energy to the meat. Watching their hopeful smiles even made Dojun crack his stoic facade for a moment. After dinner, they returned to planning. With the map unfurled, Inju indicated the direct path to the rift's core. It had been a brutal day, and everyone was exhausted. It would be safer to retreat and resume tomorrow. But Dojun insisted that the rift must be sealed today. Their packs were heavy with loot. A tactical withdrawal seemed more prudent. Jian also agreed with Inju's assessment. The earlier fights had drained her stamina, and the dark mana-infused monsters were far too dangerous. Besides, the original plan had been to delay sealing the rift for as long as possible. This way, they could farm as many rare materials as possible, including the blue Krako's heart. They had intended to exploit this rift like an infinite resource glitch, but the sudden appearance of dark mana corrupted that original plan. Such drastic changes were never a good omen inside a rift. Furthermore, he sensed a wrongness in the dark mana wafting through the air, but he couldn't yet identify it. Dojan grabbed his sack and emptied its contents on the ground. The bag was filled with the glittering crimson eyes of the Vulsera. He told the women to take this legendary-grade loot back to the hotel. Since they were so set on retreating, they could also hold on to his share of the loot. Before vanishing into the deep, dark woods, he promised to close the rift and join them soon. On his way to the rift core, Sei Dojan faced endless, pesky obstacles. First, the newly respawned swamp ghouls swarming the muddy waters. He must have already killed dozens by now. He was effortlessly dispatching the slimy beasts while in constant motion. When his bare hands grew too dull, His eyes sharpened, and his blade was unsheathed. Vile ichor stained his sword as ghouls disintegrated within his kill zone. The secret to killing them quickly was to aim for the core all along. Far from his path, the Cleum Guild and Hun took the route heading towards the exit at the first light of dawn. Walking beside her friend, Inju voiced her deep concern for Dojan. Juan assured her he would be fine. If he still has the energy to vanish like a bullet after a few words, then he can surely fend for himself. She said that, but Inju could still see the worry etched plainly on her face. Xuan's head hung low from embarrassment, not from concern for Dojan. She felt like a total fraud, calling herself an S-rank hunter beside him. She couldn't imagine anyone else in the world on his level. Moving gracefully in midair, Seo Dojan's blade came crashing down on a black orc's head, delivering a brutally fatal blow to the creature. Half of its brain and skull were lopped cleanly off in one clean slash. Maintaining his pace, he pivoted and crushed another black orc's skull. His emotionless massacre rightfully enraged the remaining orcs. Their futile, raging tantrums only made Dojan scoff. A reckless axe swing cut his way, and he simply vanished into thin air. When he reappeared, he held several precast destructive orbs of fire in his hand. He unleashed a flurry of spells at the orcs, burning their bodies down for an agonizing death. By the time he was done clearing the black orc den, he had already wiped out their entire population. With every new kill he claimed, the heavier his sack of loot became. By now, Juian, Inju, and their team had finally exited the rift they entered from. With their bags packed with valuable materials, they headed back to cash in. While they retreated towards the city's safety, Dojan was solo grinding the rift. Under broad daylight, he slew a blue croco without batting an eye. Stained with the fresh blood of his victims, Dojan continued to add to his kill count. While the corpse was still relatively fresh, he carved the heart out of the reptile's chest. After the successful harvest, he threw the large heart into a jar and sealed it tightly to preserve the material in its optimal state. Making more cuts into his latest victim's body, he scored 2 more crystals for his loot bag. Spawn camping the blue croco den proved surprisingly profitable with its high drop rate. Once they stopped appearing, Dojan packed up to move on. Outside the rift, inside the Brazil Hero Association's HQ, the government's technicians had been working around the clock to monitor the joint expeditions. For the first time since the operation began, HQ received an impossible notification. According to map readings, the rift zone in Santa had vanished. For a moment, the technicians couldn't believe what they were seeing on their screens. When reality hit, cheers of success echoed through the Situation Room. They quickly checked what happened in the sector, finding only one Korean team was deployed in that location. The group was registered under the Cleum Guild. But how could they clear a rift when they contacted HQ to relay their tactical retreat just 10 minutes ago? It just didn't add up. The HQ staff were completely puzzled. You see, 10 minutes earlier, our man was locked in an intense, all-out brawl against a grotesque foe, the ravenous, twin-headed ogre. Sizing up the mutated beast, Dojan knew this monster had undergone a rapid evolution, a twisted Manhwa level up from dark mana enrichment. The beast stomped, and the tremor almost knocked him off balance. Behind this final hurdle, the rift core floated above the open land. Eager to end this long night quickly, Seo Dojan shifted into a new stance. Following its stomp, the ogre decided to abuse its massive reach advantage. The tip of Dojan's blade began heating up rapidly. Simultaneously, the ogre's colossal fist blurred into a devastating punch. No matter how tiny the opening, Seo Dojan always finds a way to break through. With his sword now warm and ready, he unleashed the second form of his Vandion sword skills. Grami Gramora Poera, a line-sweeping magic that could incinerate all, blazed to life. The twin-headed ogre was utterly unprepared for the hell that followed. A perfectly straight slash was carved against the monster's shoulder before it could react. The attack left a deep, long gash across the ogre's body, making it roar in pure agony. In combat, Seo Dojan could finally let loose and wear a maniacal smile, and he was just warming up. Giving the monster no time to recover, he charged forth, fiery blade in hand. He was simply too fast to defend against. He was methodically butchering the two-headed beast to pieces. In sheer desperation, the ogre raised its fist to land a punch, packing the full force of its dense muscles. Dojan masterfully evaded with a vertical leap while already charging another attack. This time, this was no single slash. A storm of intersecting cuts diced the beast apart. His ruthless combo even savaged the trees, a true Manhwa level up with zero regard for the carnage. For his surroundings and no rookie heroes nearby, Dojan could finally stretch his muscles. At this stage, the ogre knew it was finished. It had 2 heads and 2 brains, which only served to double its terror. Instinctively, it tried to escape the deadly assault by leaping out of the way. At first, it seemed the beast might gain enough clearance to evade the carnage. In the end, one of its legs was still clipped by the line-sweeping magic. It tore through skin, flesh, and bone. A clean cut. Both of its heads groaned loudly in agony. With the beast off balance and one leg short, Dojan's next attack was a guaranteed critical. The Vandion sword skill's second form is a brutal art that can cut the mightiest foes into little bits. When the twin-headed ogre landed, it was like a downpour of shredded meat. Dojan took a deep breath and sheathed his sword. He then turned his focus to the dungeon's rift core up ahead. Gazing into the eye of the abyss, he carefully observed the core's properties. He noticed the dark mana density near it remained perfectly consistent, with no change at all. That meant the core wasn't the source of the anomaly. The dark mana was being injected by an external factor. Someone was doing this deliberately. To flood a rift zone with dark mana at such high levels would require immense power. Dojan estimated that someone at the level of an undead lord or an imperial lich must be behind this malevolent interference. But if a being of that tier was truly responsible, most life on Earth should already be enslaved as undead thralls. It was hard to identify an immediate suspect at this point. In any case, closing the rift wouldn't end this anomaly if an external factor was the cause. Dojan clenched his fist and punched the living daylights out of the rift core. A single strike was all it took to crack that swirling mass of energy. The cracks spread rapidly, and the whole thing shattered into countless shards. Dojan had taken it upon himself to investigate and hunt down whoever was messing with these rifts. Back in Brazil's hero headquarters, reports concerning the multiple expeditions had reached the association's president. Reading through the comprehensive rundown of what had been happening around the rifts sent a chill down his spine. Every line of text documenting the expeditions was unbelievable. On one side, they had dispatched a 3-nation joint team of veteran heroes, yet only one S-rank hero made it back alive. On the other, a single Korean team closed their rift with 0 casualties. The HQ was still receiving breaking updates from other rift zones. Virtually all attempts had failed, and the traumatized heroes were desperately withdrawing. Even though they organized the teams to have at least one S-rank hero in their midst, the first round proved to be a massive failure. The only glimmer of hope was the successful closure under Hunza's Korean team. But according to the reports, it was hard to even attribute the success to the Korean team. The president pulled the file and took a closer look at the San report. It stated the rift closed after they had already exited the portal. It made absolutely no sense. Comprehending how the rift was sealed felt impossible. They needed to hear what truly happened from Hunyan herself. Thankfully, she was already en route to headquarters and would arrive at any moment. From the instant Hunyan and Inju's team exited the rift until they reached HQ, just barely an hour had passed. In that time, Dojan had already erased the first rift zone. Now, he descended into the second, a place teeming with death. He swiftly deduced its heart was submerged. Unfazed, Dojan plunged into the monster-filled abyss. On the other side of the world, the president of Brazil's Hero Association finally grasped what happened in the San Rift. The truth was utterly unbelievable. Despite the report coming from Jian, the idea of one man clearing a rift corrupted by dark mana was unbelievable, a true Manhwa level-up scenario. Though Jian missed the end of his solo mission, she was 100% certain he crushed the threat alone. The president was forced to confront this terrifying reality. He disclosed classified intel to Jian about the other team's catastrophic failures. Multiple S-rank heroes had been slaughtered in other rift zones. Bluntly, Jian admitted she would have been a statistic if not for Dojan. Based on the current intel, her report was hard to swallow, but she also provided vital data on the dark mana that supercharged the monsters to possess power beyond even S-rank heroes. Jian remained stoic, stating only the facts. The association could believe it or not. Making things worse, reports confirmed several southern rifts near Santa had been sealed. The president simply assumed that those must have been untouched by the dark mana's corruption. Jian warned him against such thinking. She insisted every rift's danger level is now completely different. The first clue was a different entrance color. For now, that is the only sign if a rift is a death trap. The president immediately ordered his teams to verify every rift entrance across Brazil. As he coordinated the chaos, Jian rose and departed. Her duty here was complete. Outside, she quickly dialed Chairman Nate Wong of Korea's Hero Association. The old man listened intently to Jian's grim report on the expedition and the dark mana threat. Fortunately, no signs of this dangerous variable had appeared in Korea yet. Taiwan would now monitor its rifts with extreme caution. If S-rankers were being culled like animals by empowered monsters, this was a grave cause for alarm. If a boss-class monster was tainted by such a force, the outcome would be apocalyptic. They might be safe for the moment, but Korea had to prepare for the absolute worst. While the world panicked, so Dojan was calmly descending into the depths of the rift. In rifts with rivers and lakes, the core is almost always found underwater. Of course, humans cannot breathe underwater. Few heroes can fight at full capacity in such hostile conditions. As far as Dojan knew, New Zealand's national hero, Ivan Looper, was the only notable S-rank specializing in aquatic combat. His niche skill set let him command a high price to resolve these underwater rifts globally. His unique breathing trait allowed him to corner the market on these treacherous, wet rifts. As Dojan sank deeper, he felt the dark mana's presence thicken. Taking a single, deep breath, he plunged into the unknown abyss. He swam proficiently through the water. The surface creatures posed no real threat, but upon reaching a certain depth, all light was extinguished, likely consumed by the oppressive dark mana. He noted more vicious monsters circling with hungry curiosity. As he moved further from any land, he had to stabilize himself in the crushing depths. He used his mana to form a membrane around his body, negating the pressure and allowing him to move without restriction. The deeper he dove, the more he adjusted the membrane's resistance. By the time he reached the deepest part, Dojan had perfectly calibrated his protective shield, moving as if on dry land. Instantly, he was targeted by one of the grotesque monsters lurking in the blackness. It resembled a predatory seahorse, swollen to a monstrous size. He recognized this beast, an Archon. As expected, it was surging with unnatural power, a gift from the dark mana. Dojan clenched his fist, expanding his protective field to face the coming horror. Join us for the next part by subscribing, and let us know your thoughts. Illuminated the dark abyss. This sudden energy burst stunned the Archon, slaughtering the beast without a weapon. The blood, guts, and mangled parts of the Archon turned the water a sickening crimson. The smell of death also attracted a school of ravenous piranha monsters. These opportunistic predators greedily devoured the Archon's dismembered carcass. While the first wave feasted, the next wave locked its gaze on Dojan. He reckoned that if Ivan Looper saw this carnage, that man would lose his nerve completely. Once the second wave of piranhas entered his kill radius, Dojan dispatched them with ruthless precision. Unfazed by the unstable water, he maintained perfect control of his body. He hunted even more. He even punched a shark directly in its abdomen. With his feet planted on the seabed, he unleashed a flurry of punches at speeds identical to those on land. He was annihilating aquatic life left and right. As his kill count climbed, more hungry beasts converged on his position. Dealing with these lesser fries was admittedly a nuisance. For now, Dojan chose to reposition. He picked a direction and shot away. But while fleeing his fishy pursuers, he was struck by a profound unease. He realized he had entered an area where no other creature dared to trespass. Before him, resting on a stone dais, was a strange, one-eyed fish. Dojan immediately recognized that wretched creature. This eerie-looking fish is an Acrios. Dojan hadn't anticipated meeting a familiar beast today. It thrilled him enough to crack a grim smile. In his previous life, everyone whose name was etched into legend shared one thing. They all hunted the infamous Acrios when they were complete nobodies. For the current him, this is a golden opportunity that he absolutely cannot let pass. Coincidentally, the Rift Zone's core was neatly concealed beneath the Acrios' resting spot. The flattened fish with a gold and purple eye shifted into a combat stance. Dojan did the same, planting his feet firmly in the silt. These creatures have no natural predators in the wild. Whatever it confronts, it just creates a subspace and swallows the threat whole. A true glutton for destruction. As expected, once he drew close enough, the subspace expanded, trying to pull everything in. Dojan struggled to avoid the worst-case scenario of being instantly erased before he could even begin. Barely evading the initial expansion, he scoffed and meticulously maneuvered through the narrow gaps bordering the subspace. His movement was fluid, avoiding the infinite void on the other side of the creeping distortion. The Acrios kept its single eye on the troublesome human, while Dojan's power flared. In his current state, beating the fish to death would be swift and easy, but if he chose that barbaric route, he would not acquire its subspace. The only method to hunt this thing correctly is through pure mana suppression. This way, he can eliminate the Acrios and keep the subspace intact for himself. Using mana quality and sheer force, Dojan pushed his output to the absolute limit and overwhelmed the expanding subspace. The light and destructive force of his pure mana claimed the lives of countless other monsters lurking nearby. Those poor creatures never knew what hit them. Dojan couldn't care less about the minor collateral damage. He was more focused on the Acrios' resistance. The more he fought to close the distance, the more concentrated and viscous the subspace became. He was already pouring out a staggering amount of pure mana, and his reserves were rapidly depleting. He had no other choice but to attempt absorbing the dark mana from the depths. In doing so, he opened his body to the malevolent energy, purifying and emitting it in a rapid succession. Dojan was clearly pushing himself far past his body's limits. He felt a line of blood escape his nose, and coughing up more, he might have miscalculated his body's capacity. Meanwhile, the Acrios was staring him down with its cryptic eye, refusing to yield this golden opportunity presented before him. Dojan abandoned all caution and went all in. A few moments later, the Riftwater's serene flow was shattered by a forceful eruption. Dojan had managed to drag the Acrios out of its home turf through sheer willpower. Now that they were on land, the tables had turned, and Dojan swiftly seized the subspace. In his hand pulsed an infinite void that could be used for a vast array of purposes. The moment the subspace was ripped away from the light left the creature's eye as it succumbed to death. Its corpse sank into the water, while Dojan collapsed on land, unconscious. Hours later, as the sun set, birds gathered around the unconscious Dojan. He awoke with a sneeze, his body purging the water from his lungs. His system, scattering the birds, Dojan opened his eyes, exhausted from the brutal underwater fight. Thankfully, his drenched bag and sword were not lost. It would be a hassle to search that dark water. Remembering what he had accomplished, he sat up and tested his new power. First, he conjured pure mana to his arm, feeling the massive change. It was apparent his mana capacity had undergone a true Manhwa level up. Fighting that beast was worth it for this alone. But the main prize from the end of that suffocating fight was his newly stolen subspace. This was the biggest gain from his Brazilian trip so far. Now he does not have to lug his bag and sword around. He could store them in the void, free from the burden of carrying his loot and weapon. Dojan stood up happily and stretched his limbs. He had gotten a massive haul in this rift. Time to call it a day. With the boss handled, he could just close the rift real quick and head to the lodge. A productive day. The journey ahead is anyone's guess.